Call the meeting to order for the April 12th, 2022 study session. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
The record will reflect that Councilmember Brenner is present at a teleconferencing location pursuant to Government Code Section 54953B at 100 Arroyo Roble Road, Sedona, Arizona. So now I'll conduct a roll call verbally. Councilmember O'Neill.
Here.
Councilmember Duffield.
Here.
Councilmember Dixon.
Here.
Councilmember Brenner.
Here.
That's a here. Councilmember Avery.
Here.
Councilmember Blom.
Here.
And Mayor Muldoon.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, if the vortex causes any interference, Councilman Brenner, you need to let us know with some crystals or something.
I'll transfer.
Thank you. Okay, on to current business, clarifications for the items on the consent calendar. Councilman O'Neill, do you have any clarification regarding any items on the consent calendar?
I have none.
Councilman Duffield? I have none. Councilwoman Dixon?
I have none.
Councilwoman Brenner?
None.
Councilman Avery?
None.
Mayor Pro Tem Blom?
I have none.
And I have none as well. Before we get to our proclamations, we have a very special presentation to make to our retiring Recreation and Senior Services Director, Laura Detweiler. I know you're going to love all the spotlight in this, Laura. You want to come up? Let's make it extra awkward. Somewhat. Hi.
Hi.
Do you still work for us, or is...
For a few more days, yes.
Okay, good. Okay, it's my pleasure to say a few words about Laura before we present her with a plaque to commemorate her many years of service to our community. Laura has served as Director of Recreation and Senior Services for the City of Newport Beach since 2008. In that role, she has provided administrative management and oversight in the development, coordination, and implementation of recreational, social, and educational opportunities for Newport Beach residents. She provides leadership in the use, programming, and management of Newport Beach's 65 parks, 12 community facilities, natural spaces, and sensitive marine habitats throughout the city. Laura oversees a staff of over 150 employees, many of whom are present, and a $13 million operating budget with an additional $6 million in reserves while ensuring a high level of customer service, I would argue the highest. She has played a central role in several large legacy projects, including the renovation of Oasis Senior Center, the development of Sunset Ridge Park, Marina Park, as well as dozens of playground and park improvements. Laura serves as a liaison to the Parks, Beaches, and Recreation Commission. I'm sorry, but I'm sure you'll miss it still. The City Council, even more sorry. Numerous community groups, and was a director for the 1-1 Marines Committee, a nonprofit group to support local Marines and their families. Prior to her current position in Newport Beach, Laura served in the recreation leadership roles for the city of Cypress, Long Beach, and Signal Hill. But this wasn't her first job in Newport Beach. She worked here from 1991 to 1997 as a community services program coordinator at Oasis. Between the two positions, Laura has served our community for approximately 20 years. She has made a tremendous impact here in Newport Beach through the programs and services she has managed and championed. Laura is an innovative and dynamic leader who recruits, mentors, and motivates employees to perform at their highest levels. In doing so, she has built a dedicated, hardworking, and creative team that will continue to provide the highest level of service to our residents. Laura, on behalf of the City Council and the residents of Newport Beach, it is my honor to present you this plaque commemorating your many years of excellent service to this community. We'll all step down and do a photo, but maybe you want to say a couple of words first.
I do. Thank you, Mayor Muldoon, members of the council, the executive team that are here, my staff that are here, my partner Bonnie, who's here too. Don't you have a council meeting right now that you're supposed to be at? She's got a helicopter, so she's going to make it back to Orange. So thank you for this recognition. I've loved my career. I'm sure you know that. You can see that in my work and my team's work. I've loved working for the city of Newport Beach. It's been the pinnacle of my career. I've worked for great cities and loved all of them, but to be able to work here in Newport Beach is like being a kid in a candy shop. So with an incredible backdrop that we have, the resources that you as council and the committee provide for us to be the best at what we do and be creative. It really has, it's been my honor to work here. I'm incredibly proud of my team and how they respond to the community each day and work so closely with them. So I will miss working here. I will miss working with you, some of the great community members that I've worked with over the years. I think I'm most proud of not only the facilities that we've built, the facilities that we continue to plan to build. There's some great things on the horizon that I know my team will do great work out of, but also just an incredible array of programs and services, recreational, social, educational. If I come back this way, I want to be a kid in Newport Beach. That's my wish. So I'm, I know that I'm leaving the department and the city in such great hands with the incredible team that I have. So thank you for this honor, and I will look fondly from afar, but will also be very, always be very interested in the work that Newport Beach is doing, because we do world-class work here. So thank you.
We certainly do, and you're going to be missed. Before I ask my colleagues to maybe say a couple words, why don't we do a quick photo with all of us, and then you can do a second set of photos with your staff, and we can give comments at that point.
Okay, great. Thank you.
One, two, three.
One, two, three. Yeah.
Okay, you want? Yeah. Okay.
Might need some people in the. Get in a little closer. Okay, no, yeah, that width is good, but we might need some people in the front. She's so small. Okay, I can barely see him. There we go. Me too. Sean, a little bit that way. There we go. Okay. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. And one more. Just in case. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, and I'll open up to anyone on the dais who wants to say a couple words. Yes, Councilman Biggs.
Thank you, Mayor. There's Laura. When you announced your retirement, I wrote you a note, so I just want to read those words again. Dear Laura, this is a bittersweet moment. An exceptional professional is reaching a well-deserved retirement, yet the void of her absence will be hard to replace. Laura has given the equivalent of multiple careers in service to the city of Newport Beach, and we, the city, and our residents are infinitely better for it. Laura, you will be missed greatly, but a true mark of an excellent leader is creating an outstanding team that will keep all parts moving forward in your absence. Maybe missing a beat or two, but you have prepared them well to carry on. The first of many thank yous coming your way, but sad, but happy for you to walk away with pride in your well-deserved career success. You are best in class. Congratulations on your next chapter.
Councilman Avery.
Yeah, thanks. All I know is you don't have an operation like this with this many employees, that kind of budget, all the random moving parts. And, I think all of us up here on the dais, it just runs so smoothly. It's just run so well. And obviously, we know there are issues, but your leadership skills, your management skills, really shown just by the incredible facilities we have in your department. And your leadership with Oasis before that, and just getting that center off to such a great start. And then Marina Park, I mean, what a facility, what a long haul that was to bring that forward. So there's just so much there, and you can be really proud of a great career. Thank you so much.
Councilman Duffield.
Thank you, Mayor. I had no idea the complexity. Well, first of all, I didn't know we had so many parks. But to think that job, when I first got on council, I thought, no big deal. A few parks, a few things. But watching what goes on and seeing all of the programs and all of the different areas of the city going on with seasonal things, this and that, and the constant barrage of influx of things. I've just been so impressed with our recreational department, and of course, you're the leader of it. So I am so amazed and grateful, and now, like what you said, to come back as a kid, I'm all for that. that was a good line. Anyway, thank you so much. You're going to be horribly missed, but like Diane said, you've created a great team out there, and I'm sure it'll continue on. But I just, the word impressed, that's what I have to say. I was just so amazed at how much energy it takes to do what you do. So thank you so much, and have a good retirement.
Councilman O'Neill.
Yeah, so in addition to the note that I'd given you, I just wanted to say thank you. It'd been a little while since you had a council member with kids, and now you've got two or three. And so, although I suppose Kai spends a lot more time on the water, but it's been one of those things where I think a lot of parents just don't realize how amazing the parks are and the programming is, and sometimes take it for granted. But the amazing thing is that y'all continue to work incredibly hard to make sure that they do continue to take it for granted. They don't notice any difficulties because it is that amazing. So, on behalf of parents in the city, just want to say thank you for everything that you've done to make our kids' lives better.
Thank you. Councilman Blum.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Laura. I think that, as Councilmember O'Neill said, when you have kids, you spend a lot more time in the grass than you thought you normally would. And after hearing of your tenure here, realizing that you've actually taken care of the parks that my child has played in most of his entire life. And that's just amazing to think about. And, whether it was like early days where they're frolicking around or where they're ripping up the grass as they're trying to play sports and you're desperately trying to make sure it stays nice. We appreciate all of those parts. But really, I think it just speaks to what the city is and kind of the view you took on it, that we're a city of recreation and enjoyment. And I think under your time here, you've really kind of taken that to a new level. And we thank you for that. It's just been amazing. Thanks, Laura.
Councilwoman Brenner.
Yes. Hi, Laura. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Joy.
Hi. I just wanted to add my congratulations and also say thank you for the quality of the people that you have brought into your department and the way you have trained them and the customer service attitude that everyone there has. You and they solve every problem that is brought to you with an air of effortlessness. And I know it's not effortless, but it always appears that way. And we just thank you from the bottom of our hearts for everything that you've done for us.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. And I think you have a shindig. Is that staff only?
No, the public's invited.
Okay,
yeah.
tell us the details.
So it's going to be next week over at the Oasis Senior Center, and my staff has not been able to program a party in 2 years, and that's just torture. So I'm going to guess it's going to be a pretty fun event. So we're looking forward to that. Really, just kind of looking forward to getting together and celebrating everything that we've done as a department, as a city. So I thank you for the privilege to work here. I thank you for the support of me and the department over all these years, and I just really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura. God bless. Look forward to seeing you then. Okay, we have two proclamations to present this afternoon. The first is a proclamation for the DMV Donate Life California Month. Is Rita Jackson present? Yes, hi, Rita. Would you like to come forward?
Good afternoon, Mayor
Afternoon.
and council members. I appreciate your time. Yes, my name's Rita Jackson, and I'm actually an ambassador for One Legacy. One Legacy is an organ procurement organization that actually bridges the donors to the recipients. So we actually do the coordinating of transplantation.
Oh, wow, interesting.
Yes. Yes, I am an ambassador, but more importantly, I'm Jasmine's mom. This is Jasmine. She was 17 years old when she got her driver's license, and at that time she decided on her own to register to be a donor. Jasmine was a very community-involved little girl. She did everything she could for the community. She was at the library every day practically. She was always trying to help people that needed any kind of assistance whatsoever. She was high on education. She loved the water. She loved the beach. But only 3 years after she received her driver's license and registered to be a donor, my daughter walked into the house and sat on the couch next to me and collapsed in my arms. She stopped breathing at 20 years old, just weeks before her 21st birthday. Jasmine passed away from a pulmonary embolism. There was no warning, no sign. She was my only child. Jasmine has always had a special place in her heart for your city. She wanted to spend her 21st birthday with her cousin, who's 10 days older than her, right here in Newport Beach. We had already planned a house right on the strand there. And after she passed, I told my family we have to go. Jasmine would want us to be together. She was all about family, and she loved the water. So Newport has a very special place in my heart. I come down here often just to feel the ocean breeze in my face and walk along your beautiful paths, and especially enjoy those beautiful parks. But because Jasmine became a donor, she actually has been able to continue her legacy, and she has helped several people. She's touched the lives of over 35 people with her tissue donation. One of the people in particular is a 13-year-old girl who received her heart valves. That little girl is alive today because of Jasmine, along with 30-plus other people that have received surgeries like ACL tears and back surgery, neck surgery, skin grafts, burn victims. Because of Jasmine, those people are living better quality of life. I'm just here to tell everyone that it's important to consider registering, because not only can you save a life, in fact, you can save 8 lives, but by Jasmine registering, she saved the life of her family. We all were hopeless when she had passed, but getting that phone call 10 to 12 hours after she passed, knowing that she was going to continue on, her legacy was going to continue, actually helped us all. It lifted our spirits, and it's comforting us year after year. So again, I would just ask that everybody in your community consider registering. They can go to donatelifecalifornia.org, and if you put /Jasmine, Jasmine, you can read her story. There you can read all kinds of stories, but you can also have the option to register. I appreciate you, Mayor, so much for making this month Donate Life Month and acknowledging the fact that we have those heroes out there, as well as people that are waiting for that life-saving organ. We lose 17 people every day because there's not a life-saving organ available. So I will not stop talking about this until I take my last breath, because to save one mom from having to say goodbye to her child early because we don't have somebody that's wanting to carry on that legacy, I will continue to do this. Again, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Rita. Yeah. Thank you, Rita, for the comments and the touching story of Jasmine. We're sorry for your loss, and I'm so impressed that you are committing yourself to doing something to help alleviate pain for others and spread hope. So at this time, I'll read the proclamation. And I think you've done this before.
Yes, last year I got the honor last year as well.
So-
and I always take advantage after and go watch the sunset down at the beach.
Oh, that's so
it's
nice.
so
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah.
That's great. Well, let me read it.
Yes.
And we'll take pictures and you go enjoy the sunset.
Thank you.
Thank you. Whereas organ, eye, tissue, marrow, and blood donation are life-giving acts recognized worldwide as expression of compassion and to those in need. Whereas more than 106,000 individuals nationwide and more than 20,000 in California are currently on the national organ transplant waiting list, and on average, 17 people die each day while waiting. And whereas the need for donated organs is especially urgent in Hispanic, Latino, and African American communities. And whereas a single individual's donation of heart, lung, liver, kidney, pancreas, and small intestine can save up to 8 lives. Whereas donation of tissue can save and heal the lives of more than 75 others. And whereas organ donors saved more than 40,000 lives last year, the most ever. Whereas any person can register to be an organ, eye, tissue donor, regardless of age or medical conditions. And whereas being a registered donor does not impact the quality of life-saving medical care a person receives in an emergency. And whereas California residents can sign up with the Donate Life California donor registration online at any time by visiting www.donatelifecalifornia.org, or for Spanish speakers, www. Oh, gonna have a tough one with that one. There's a Spanish version.
Done vida.
Perfect.
Donate life.
Thank you. Whereas California residents can sign up to be an organ, eye, and tissue donor when applying for or renewing their driver's license or ID cards at the California Department of Motor Vehicles. Whereas California residents interested in saving a life through living kidney donations are encouraged to visit www.livingdonationcalifornia.org. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Kevin Muldoon, Mayor of the City of Newport Beach, on behalf of the entire Newport Beach City Council, to hereby proclaim April 2022 as DMV Donate Life Month. Want to do a quick picture?
Yes, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Can you send it to me?
One, two, three. Okay, 3. One more time.
Okay, next item, Celebration of Heroes, honoring the heroes of the pandemic. I think we have 2 speakers that are going to speak first. I'll call forward first Douglas Freeman and Ernani Damasa. Hope I said that correct. Please feel free to correct me at the podium. Okay.
Hi, I'm Ernani Damasa with the Celebration of Heroes, and thank you so much for having us here today. We appreciate it. Douglas couldn't come today, so I'm speaking for the celebration. I'm an executive television producer, so I'll be producing the event. And we are thrilled that we're going to be bringing 13 distinguished scientists to Orange County, who from the many companies that invented the vaccines that have helped save so many lives. We've saved over $899 billion, billion with a B, in medical costs because of the vaccines, and we've saved close to 2 million lives. As part of that celebration, besides the scientists that will be coming from Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, Entech, and Pfizer, we've decided to have nominated heroes. And in the community, we've had 68 nominations. Some of those will become featured heroes the evening of the event. The events will occur on the 29th of April at the Beckman Center at UCI. The Beckman Center is part of the National Academy of Sciences, which you all may know was established originally by President Truman after the Manhattan Project and was one of the most prestigious science organizations in the world. We're very excited that one of those heroes is with us today and that you've chosen to honor her. And I'm happy to be here in that cause.
Excellent. And is it this event that you spoke of on the 20th, correct? Is it open to the public?
The event on the 29th at the
29th.
Beckman Center at the National Academy of Sciences is registered. You can register through Eventbrite on the UCI campus where the Beckman Center is. On the 30th, there'll be a gala dinner where the awards will be given to the scientists and the heroes. And that will occur at the new Westin Anaheim Resort across the driveway from Disneyland. That event is the evening of the 30th, and tickets are available. To go to celebrationofheroes.com, all of the events are listed, and all of our heroes are also on that website with their bios.
Perfect. And right now, we're going to honor one of our local heroes, EMS Division Chief Kristen Thompson. Kristen, want to come forward? Hi. I see you have some people with you today.
I have two families, big families. I have my home family and my work family.
Okay, great. I'll read this proclamation. If you like, we can take pictures of the different groups, and then you're welcome to say a couple words as well. Great. Whereas in December of 2019, a novel virus known as coronavirus disease, or COVID-19, emerged throughout the world, causing one of the deadliest pandemics in history. Whereas international health organizations declared an international public health emergency and pandemic in early 2020. And whereas by March 1st, 2022, more than 437 million people had contracted COVID-19, resulting in nearly 6 million deaths worldwide. Whereas the pandemic caused severe social and economic disruptions, supply shortages, and other adverse effects attendant to such global disasters. Whereas nearly 581,000 Orange County residents contracted COVID-19, and more than 6,600 of those died from the effects of the disease. Whereas medical professionals, first responders, and other essential workers labored tirelessly to provide medical health, public safety, and other essential services. Whereas thousands of others, including grocery clerks, truck drivers, custodians, pastors, caregivers, and those whose vocational represent the width and breadth of the American people, have sacrificed to help their neighbors and communities, often without direction and without recognition. Whereas these people have protected us, healed us, provided care and comfort for those in isolation, and cared for our friends and loved ones, as well as their own. Whereas Newport Beach EMS Division Chief Kristen Thompson provided extraordinary leadership and skill in guiding the department in its response to the health care challenges, which greatly enhanced the quality of care provided to both the general community and her department personnel, and has designated and has been designated an Orange County hero of the pandemic. Now, therefore, I, Kevin Muldoon, Mayor of the City of Newport Beach, on behalf of the entire Newport Beach City Council, do hereby honor EMS Division Chief Kristen Thompson as one of the county's heroes of the pandemic. Kristen.
Thank you, Mayor, and everybody else that's here. It's difficult, right? I mean, everybody, all the people that you read off deserve this award far more than I do, so I really can't say thank you enough. And also with the heroes, couldn't have done it without both the families that are sitting here, without the work family. They're all the heroes that have been there to support the efforts for the last 2 years. And, and definitely my family, because they've put up with me, maybe giving them an hour of my day over the last 2 years. And they've still stood behind me and supported me. And like I said, I can't say enough about the department that I work for, because we could not have accomplished what we did in the last 2 years. And I know for sure I would never have survived the last 2 years without both of these families. So thank you. They're all heroes.
Well, Commander Thompson, do you want to do a quick, or Division Chief, excuse me, I gave you a promotion. Do you want to do a quick photo with the council up front? Okay, great.
1, 2, 3. Oh, I thought there was someone else. Okay. Whatever Chief wants. There, okay, you got it. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now let me.
Just want to add something. If you're watching, you might not be able to tell, but I could see it in Chief Thompson's face and demeanor. You could almost feel the stress and heaviness of the pandemic and how tough it was on our staff. And it was very humble of you and kind to say you don't deserve it, but you and our staff really were heroes during that time. It was emotionally exhausting, psychologically as challenging as it gets. And thank you very much, and thank you to all your staff and all of our city for being there when the community needed you. Thank you. Okay, on to the official traffic business. We're going to have a review of the Tustin Avenue trial closure.
Well, good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Dave Webb, your Public Works Director, and with me today is Tony Bryan, our Traffic Engineer. We're going to talk to you a little bit about a trial of a street closure we put in place in regards to our council action back in August of 2021. So at this point, I'm going to turn over to Tony to go ahead and go through the presentation and the data, and then we'll take questions.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, council members, Tony Bryan, City Traffic Engineer. We'll step through quickly the trial closure analysis and the conclusions from the project. So a little bit of a background here. It was April of last year, so about a year ago, that we received the petition from residents along Tustin and Ocean View for closing the north end of Tustin at Cliff Drive. In August of last year, we brought the item to you to talk about the potential for closure, and it was direction from the council to do a 4-month trial closure to see what the results of that closure could be. So in September, we decided to collect before counts, what we call, basically we did a before and after study. We collected the pre-closure counts in September. November 15th was actually the day that the barricades were installed to close the north end of Tustin at Cliff. And then this most recent February, we did follow-up counts that were taken, so that was our after counts. And just wanted to clarify that in both cases, the counts that we took, they were not during holiday season, they were not when school was out of session, so they were good collective counts. So this is the location again. The north end is highlighted there of Tustin at Cliff. You'll see that it comes up off of Coast Highway, Tustin Avenue, and Ocean View. They join kind of a loop neighborhood, and it's that closure at the north end that was part of the project. These are some photos of what the trial closure looked like. Obviously, it was temporary barricades that were put in place, water-filled barricades. On the left at the north end at Ocean View and on the right at Cliff Drive. We left gaps in the barricades so that pedestrians and bicyclists could go through. These are photos of Ocean View and of Tustin Avenue. Both streets are 28 feet wide, curb to curb. They have parking on both sides, and there are no sidewalks on either street. Now, just as a comparison to other neighborhoods in the city, Corona del Mar is 30 feet wide, curb to curb, parking on both sides, and there are no sidewalks on the numbered streets in Corona del Mar. And in the Newport Heights neighborhood, the curb-to-curb width of the streets in that neighborhood is 36 feet curb to curb, and there's parking on both sides. So that's just a comparison of the different street widths. So when we chose the study area, we chose streets in the immediate vicinity to the closure. So we went ahead and did before and after counts on these highlighted orange streets, which were Tustin, Ocean View, Avon next to the businesses, Cliff Drive immediately adjacent to the closure, and Riverside north of Cliff, and also Tustin north of Cliff. So we selected those streets to see what impacts there may be from the closure. Again, these are the locations of the traffic counts. Now, this is what the results of the counts are, and we saw this. The before counts are in blue, and I know the numbers may look small, but the before counts are blue, and the after counts are in red. Primarily on Tustin Avenue, there was a reduction of traffic on Tustin Avenue, and that was to be expected with the closure, a reduction of about something in the order of 550 daily traffic volumes on Tustin. The other streets all saw different levels of increases of traffic. Avon saw increases of traffic, Riverside north of Cliff. Ocean View actually saw an increase of traffic. Tustin Avenue north of Cliff did not see an increase in traffic. That's not entirely surprising, but we didn't see a change there. Cliff Drive obviously saw an increase in traffic for traffic that was diverted around the closure area. So the observations essentially on Tustin, the section that is north of Avon, we saw a reduction from 834 trips daily to 276 trips daily. And that was basically a 2/3 reduction in traffic on Tustin Avenue south of Cliff Drive. And that's fairly consistent with the estimate that we did last year in August when we brought the item to you, based on the counts that we had and based on the traffic projections for the neighborhood, just the neighborhood itself. The estimated cut-through traffic was about that same number. Basically what happened is when the closure was put into place over time, the drivers in the area, the residents, or even other people that drove through the area became familiar that the closure was there. They avoided using Tustin Avenue itself for the most part. Now, there were drivers that did continue into the tract, but once they got up to the top and they realized that the Tustin Avenue was closed, they would make a left turn onto Ocean View, and then they would return out of the track. So actually, this is the reason why Ocean View Avenue saw an increase in daily traffic from 169 trips per day to 255 trips per day. Now, this is, again, Ocean View and Tustin are fairly low volume streets, and that we would expect that because of a very small number of homes in that particular neighborhood. But Ocean View saw that slight increase.
Can I just ask just a quick question? Did you use signage to say that it's closed up there so people were advised?
Yes, we did. We posted signage at the bottom at Avon. In fact, 2 signs at both Ocean View and Tustin to say no outlet.
And then in your prior slide, did you monitor the increase or decrease or the effect on Riverside?
Yes.
You did?
And we're going there.
Okay, all right, thanks.
So in fact, we saw an increase in traffic on Avon, not surprising. People would travel from Coast Highway up Tustin, and if they saw that it was closed and they saw the street signs that said no outlet, they'd make the left, they'd go along Avon. We saw a jump from 718 to about 1,000 trips per day on Avon. This is the segment of the street that has the businesses fronting Avon. And then for Riverside Avenue north of Cliff Drive, we saw an increase from 1,862 trips to 2,053 trips. So this is about a 10% increase on daily traffic on Riverside. And basically following the circulation, Riverside Avenue became an option for some people as they circulated around past Cliff Drive Park. And then they would go up Riverside. Some change in the option to entering Newport Heights. And then again, we did not see any traffic volume changes on Tustin north of Cliff. Some of the conclusions from our study and the results was that we did see, well, I'll back up here. Typical traffic volumes, what we would call livable traffic volumes for residential streets, would be somewhere in the 2,000 to 3,000 trips per day range. If you get much beyond, or you start going into 4,000 trips per day on a residential street, now you're getting into a more unlivable or a much more busy residential street. But in that range of 2,000 to 3,000, that's considered a typical livable volume. The primary cut-through traffic, and it's very interesting to see, in fact, the percentage, but the very large percentage of cut-through traffic was northbound on Tustin. We really didn't see very much at all cut-through traffic going southbound on Tustin. It was all northbound. And in fact, most of that reduction in traffic volumes on Tustin was northbound traffic. Surrounding neighborhood streets in Newport Heights, they all saw various levels of traffic diversion and increases. And like I mentioned, you saw more percentage increases on Avon, but you did see percentage increases on Riverside and other streets as you saw the diversion of traffic taking place around the neighboring streets. We've collected a lot of speed data, and we've analyzed police records, not just as part of this study, but over the years. Especially in Newport Heights, a lot of speed and volume data. And basically the speed data and the police records within the streets around the area, they do not indicate that there's excessive speeds or accident history on these streets in Newport Heights, which is a good thing. And the measured speeds and the volumes on the Newport Heights streets do not meet the traffic calming criteria for the City Council Policy L26. Right, and I'm sorry, that would be with or without the diversion. That's pre-closure, post-closure. In both cases, the streets in Newport Heights and in Tustin, Ocean View, even Riverside, any of the streets don't meet that criteria for traffic calming. Now, one of the ideas and one of the things that was brought up by some people in the neighborhood was, well, instead of doing a closure on the north end of Tustin at Cliff, why don't we try a closure at the bottom? Where Ocean View, Tustin, and Avon come together. Why don't we do some type of closure there? And there's two different ways you could look at that. One would be a partial closure, which is on the left, and one would be a full closure, which is on the right. The partial closure would be letting traffic exit the neighborhood going southbound only, but restricting the northbound traffic. And then obviously the full closure would be restricting northbound as well as southbound exiting the neighborhood. Now, in the case of both of those, the partial and the full closure, you are restricting the northbound traffic coming into the neighborhood. And again, that's the predominant volume of traffic by far. So by restricting that northbound traffic on Tustin or Ocean View, you're still going to have the diversion of traffic into the neighboring streets. You're still going to see that almost same level of diversion to Avon, up Riverside, to Riverside Avenue north of Cliff, on Cliff Drive itself. Because that northbound traffic on Tustin is the primary traffic, you will still see the diversion, whether you've closed it at the top or closed it at the bottom at Avon. So the options going forward, we can make the closure at the north end at Tustin Avenue. You could make that permanent. You could study the partial closure or the full closure at Avon Street, as I just discussed. Or we could reopen the trial closure and go back to the previous roadway condition and the circulation system that existed in the area prior to the trial. So if you have any questions, I'm available.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question, as we edify this. Could you go back to the prior slide? I think it's the prior slide. Maybe it's the previous one to that. The last bullet point, measured speeds and volumes on Newport Heights streets do not meet criteria for traffic calming per council policy. So are you saying having this diversion, even the results and the increase, you're saying it doesn't merit doing any permanent action? Am I interpreting that correctly?
Yes, that's correct. Based on the measured speeds on the streets and the traffic volumes, it doesn't meet that minimum criteria for doing any type of traffic calming, whether that's speed bumps or chokers or anything of that nature. The streets in Newport Heights don't meet that criteria. And that's not just a study results from this particular trial closure study. We've done other studies in Newport Heights. We've come up with the same consistent traffic volumes and speeds. So, yeah, that's absolutely
So
true.
back to your prior chart where you measured the before and after, did any of those before and after on the neighboring streets exceed 2,000 to 3,000?
No, they don't. They're right in that range. In fact, Riverside north of Cliff is in the 1,900 to 2,000 range. Actually, Tustin north of Cliff is around 2,500. But that's not primarily what we're looking at with traffic calming. What we're looking at is what are the measured speeds. And the measured speeds on these streets are all in the 20 to 30 mile an hour range, which is below the L26 policy.
Okay, and the one final question, at least at this point, in terms of options, did you consider making Tustin a one-way street?
No, we did not. There's issues with one-way streets, especially in a circulation system, as in such a defined neighborhood as Newport Heights, with so many different ways into and out of this particular area. So I would have a concern with a one-way street for Tustin, just the concern of wrong-way traffic, because it is used by a lot of drivers to go between, say, Avon or Coast Highway into Newport Heights itself. So the primary concern I would have would be wrong-way traffic.
Councilmember Dixon, we put that one point in there just to kind of set the table for folks. The typical traffic on a residential street on a scale of 2,000 to 3,000 is important, because when you look at these numbers, some of these streets are hundreds of cars a day, so that people understand we might have a large percentage increase of traffic, but you're still dealing with relatively small volumes, which then goes to the council policy of why we don't see speeding and traffic calming issues, because there really are low volumes in these streets.
Well, one final question. The variable here is that the width of Tustin is one of the narrowest of streets, at least with this kind of, did you calibrate the amount of traffic and the limited width, the 28-foot wide, compared to other traffic volumes that are 36 or 38 feet wide?
No, yes, absolutely. In fact, what you would see on a street that's narrower, like Tustin, you'll see measured lower speeds because of the width, and it's more constricted and it feels tighter, and you're going to see lower speeds. Both Tustin and Ocean View saw lower speeds than say, Riverside or Tustin north of Cliff. They have lower measured speeds but essentially Tustin and Riverside and when we've done studies of all of Newport Heights, they all see speeds in that 25, lower 20s up to maybe 28 miles per hour, and that doesn't fit that criteria.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Avery.
Thank you, Mayor. So how often do we change streets into one-way streets in Newport?
Yeah, not very often.
And what really drives that? How do we get there to where we change to a one-way street?
Well, we have a project a proposal coming through to you on the regular agenda later tonight. There can be requests from residents on a particular street requesting a one-way operation, but it's not very often at all that we do one-way streets.
So sometimes those requests are just not respond, just
Right.
denied?
Right, correct. If it looks like a location where a one-way street, is not really warranted and could be unsafe, then we wouldn't want to see that proceed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Brenner.
Yes, hi, Tony. I had just one comment that although there are no traffic calming measures needed there in Newport Heights now, that with the additional development that's going to occur on Mariners Mile, we will be keeping that area in our sights. And if it does become problematic, we will re-look at that option, correct?
Yes, we would. I think if we started to see more traffic volumes on streets within Newport Heights, I think we would want to reassess those streets at that time, per the city council policy L26, yes.
Okay, but for right now, this is where we're comfortable. And I would just like to indicate that I would not like to see us make a permanent change here until we've tested this at the bottom of Tustin. We received letters from a lot of people that live in that area that would like to see that option tested before we make a permanent decision. Thank you.
Sure. And I'll just follow up again, these concepts that we showed. The real issue here, as far as looking at the closure or a potential concept closure at the bottom, is that, again, the primary traffic volume on Tustin is northbound. So we wouldn't really be affecting much of a change as far as you would still see a large diversion of traffic around the area, whether you did it at the top or whether you did it at the bottom.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, looks like that's it for questions. Why don't we open up to the public? Any comments on this item, please come forward.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I'm Greg Schwenk. My family has lived on Tustin Avenue for about half a century. We are actually, if you go back to the closure photo, we're directly adjacent to the closure at northern Tustin Avenue. We stand in full favor of this. One, having grown up there and seen the changes in our community and seeing the increase in traffic and just the speeds, even on the very narrow street that is Tustin. There's a couple of things I wanted to touch on. One, I have seen while watching pedestrians go by prior to the closure and then after the closure, people really utilizing the parks more and walking along the street from Cliff Drive Park, crossing over, and then walking across the closure down to John Wayne Park, which I thought was great. And having that closure there and not having anyone using that as a major driveway, if you will, I think it would be a much better way to close it up at the top. As far as traffic that was going on to Ocean View, there were two things I will say in all respect to your members here. The signs were a little tough to see, or at least to realize if you weren't paying attention. The other piece to it, I think probably far more impacting those from out of town or those not familiar with the closure, is Waze. The traffic of the app that you can use to get around and go into different communities as opposed to taking other thoroughfares. I have heard that was now shut off, and that was showing the closure. So we've seen a huge decrease in the people kind of coming up and either turning around or making that left turn. So we stand in full favor of it. My family has been there, again, as I said, for over half a century, and we look forward to your movement on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Go ahead, take your time. I see there's a group in the audience. I suspect a couple of you will be speaking or have someone speak for you, so no rush.
Hi, I'm Sue Leal. I live at 219 Tustin. I have experienced speeding cars up and down Tustin Avenue for 8 years now. An accident at 12:30 at night, hit 3 cars with the police. I don't think the police were even chasing them. And I just really have difficulty believing that you've done any kind of a speed test on Tustin Avenue, going up Tustin Avenue. Tustin Avenue is used as a thoroughfare for people that have been drinking in all the restaurants right there. They don't want to go to Riverside because they've been drinking too much. So they're going up Tustin Avenue to get away from the potential of getting pulled over. They have broken side mirrors on people's cars. They've hit a woman that was jogging up the street. There's been all kinds of things. Please tell me that you have done a speed test on Tustin going north.
Ma'am, I appreciate your comments. It's not time for questions of staff. Any other comments, please come forward.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Robert Clark. My wife and I reside at 215 Tustin and have since 1976. A little bit of Newport history, and I'm a little sketchy on this, but we had the unique experience of purchasing our property from the state of California because it was going to be a right-of-way for a street that, a thoroughfare that carried across the top of Kings Road. And I think Duffield's father was instrumental in seeing that didn't occur, so which we owe him a debt of gratitude. But one of the primary considerations for our request was safety. And we now know that it's a very narrow street, relatively. When we have learned that we have to back into our driveway, and the reason we do that is because if there's parking on the street, we can't see either way, whether it's coming up or coming down. So we park, we back in, and that allows us to leave tentatively. And at times, either myself or my wife will go out into the street, and it sounds like it may be an exaggeration, but we go out into the street to make sure someone's not coming up. So there is a real safety issue, and as Sue mentioned, speed is an issue. I don't know that we've got anything that definitive by the city, but people do use it as a hill climb event. I mean, they start at the bottom and they think for some reason they really have to punch it, which they do. So it has been a real consideration as far as speed and safety is concerned. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other speakers, please come forward. And if you intend to speak on this item, now is a good time to go to the other podium.
Hi, my name is Dale Velasco. I live at 243 Ocean View and have for about 35 years. And I think it would be definitely worth exploring the partial or full closure at the bottom there before any decision is made. I know for us, anybody along Ocean View, typically we shop on 17th Street as you come down Tustin or Irvine Avenue. The natural entry point is Tustin right there. Otherwise, you've got to go all the way down Riverside, all the way up Avon, and then hook back around. You're probably going 10 times the distance, and then having to navigate through, waiting for oncoming traffic on Riverside before you make the turn on Avon. I think all of the concerns I've heard about the traffic going up Tustin and the speed going up Tustin, all of that would be alleviated by the partial or full closure of the bottom there, and also looking towards the increased traffic and the parking demands of when the apartment project is built, and people are naturally going to want to use street parking rather than pay for the public parking, even though it may be available. But having the closure at the bottom will make that less likely that we're going to have additional impact from those apartment units, particularly because due to the low-income nature, they seem to be, to me, dramatically underparked in terms of on-site. So I think it's something that would be a plus to look at in terms of maintaining that upper entrance, and either partially like the one picture or the full closure, I think would benefit everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. And again, if you intend to speak on this item, please come forward now, just so we can speed it up. That's okay, sir, you can still stand up and come forward.
Hi, my name's Andrea McElroy, and I used to live at 231 Tustin, and now we live at 226 Tustin. We've been there 5 years. And since I've been there, well, first of all, the street is so narrow that 2 cars can't even fit. If a car's parked on the street, 2 cars cannot pass each other on the street. I have hit a car, my neighbor's car, trying to dodge a car coming up. My daughter's car's been hit. My daughter has hit a car. This is all in a very small amount of period of time living there. That's not normal at all. The joke of our street at restaurants and amongst all of our friends that live in Newport Heights is that's where we drive up when we've been drinking at dinner. I mean, it is known that that is the street that people drive up if they don't want to run into police. And it's ridiculous. And it's at our risk that this is happening. It's not fair to us. We've invested tons of money in our homes. It's a beautiful neighborhood, and it's not necessary. That street is not necessary. Riverside Drive takes everybody into their neighborhood. And as far as Avon Street, it's actually great for the businesses that more people are driving down Avon Street. We would love for all those people to have more business. But what's going to happen when the new development comes, every person leaving that development, the entrances on Avon, is going to shoot up Tustin to go to 17th Street. We are going to be absolutely screwed over. It's already completely dangerous. We have people who have kids on the street that can't even have their kids out in front. You can't even be on the street. And then the high school has all their people running that street for exercise, and they're dodging out of the way from people. It's so dangerous, and it's so ridiculous this is even being discussed. It has to be closed off. It's completely unsafe, and it's completely narrow. And people do speed, so I'd love to know, what the miles per hour people going up that street. We film it. We have so many films of it, and we have cameras on our house. It's completely unsafe. So please close it off. Let us all be safe. It's not necessary for that street to be through traffic to the neighborhood. Thanks.
Thanks. And it's not ridiculous to discuss it. We're trying to solve the problem. Any other comments, please come forward.
Hi, my name is Dave Leal, and I live at 219 Tustin Avenue. And I would just like to reiterate what everybody is saying, because it's really, I walk my dog 3 times a day. I walk him at 8 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and 10 o'clock at night. And I have to say that since the closure of Tustin, at 8 o'clock in the morning, when I go up to Cliff and take him up to Cliff Park, there's no problem at all crossing Cliff Drive. There's no additional traffic that has been created by the closure of Tustin. And at 5 o'clock, we go down Tustin Avenue to Avon. There's no traffic hardly on Avon. And then crossing Riverside Drive to go to Sacy-Bon, there's no traffic whatsoever, unless, of course, the green arrow on PCH is green. Then no matter what, you're going to have to wait until those cars go by. But otherwise, there's no traffic at all. But at 10 o'clock at night, before the closure, again, those people leaving, when Tustin was built, those houses were built in the 50s. That was a beautiful little street and a nice little shortcut to the PCH. But there was no iconic Rusty Pelican. There was no Billy's. There was no Guacamigos. There was no Pizza Nova. There was none of those restaurants. Now, and there was no GPS. Now, there's GPS is telling everybody, if you want a shortcut, go up Tustin Avenue. And at 10 o'clock at night, when I'm taking my dog, I have to dodge these cars. And believe me, the speed is not 20 or 25 miles an hour. It might be during the day when people are taking their kids to school. But at nighttime, those people coming out of those restaurants are coming up there as fast as they can, because it's like there's nobody there. It's black. There's no sidewalks, there's no lights, and there's no people. So what is a person going to do that's been drinking at Billy's? Boom, straight up that hill. And if I'm walking my dog, I have to watch out and be prepared for cars coming. And if there's a car coming from the top and a car coming from the bottom, then it's chicken. And who's going to back off and who's going to let the other guy go? So I understand that a lot of the streets in Newport Heights have similar problems. But this particular street is not a thoroughfare. It was not designed to be a thoroughfare, and it's just unsafe. Since the closure, I have had more people walk up to me, walking their dogs, tell me, what a beautiful street this is now. I can walk my dog. How did you guys get this done? Who decided to close the street? And when I tell them that we petitioned the city and the city came through with a trial, they say, good for you. I love this. I can now walk up here and I'm not afraid to walk. So I just want to say thank you so much for allowing us to trial. I think it's been a hugely successful thing, and I hope that we can continue that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, City Council. Erica Carson. I live at 208 Tustin Avenue. My husband and I have been there for about almost 10 years now. We have 2 little girls, and in this last 6 months that we've had this cul-de-sac up at the top, we've actually let our girls step outside our driveway. Before, people would speed up our street, not 25 miles per hour, 50 miles per hour. People racing off PCH, getting away somewhere, coming down. Also, to back my neighbors, what everyone has said, walking on our street, you can't walk up if there's cars coming down, cars coming up, walking dogs, walking kids. It is a through pathway to a school as well. So just wanted to back my neighbors and say we are in full favor of cul-de-sacing the top of our street. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Okay, see no speakers here locally. Procedurally have to ask because we have a council member calling from out of state. Are there any public comments from the state of Arizona? Seeing none.
No,
Okay.
I'm fine, thank you.
Oh, well, that's separate from you, Councilman Brenner.
Oh.
Yeah, that's to see if
None
anyone.
of the public around me
That's
wants
right.
to say anything.
That's right, yeah. Okay, now to the council chambers, including Councilman Brenner. Any comments, Councilman Brenner?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Avery.
Thank you, Mayor. This is difficult on several levels. And for me, I've got several friends that live in this area, and I completely get where they're coming from. But also, as a council member for District 2, I know the Heights pretty well. I live on Holly Lane. It's 5 blocks north. And I will confess, for the last 40 years, I've driven up and down that street almost every day going to work. And and the problem here is that Newport Heights, I think every block in Newport Heights, every street, residents will tell you people are going too fast. There are no sidewalks. It's not safe to walk in the street. And we all know this. And it is tougher on Tustin. But I do believe the traffic moves slower because it's narrower, because I know I drive slower. Now, I'm not coming from a restaurant at 10 o'clock at night, at least not anymore. And it's difficult also from the perspective of if you close Tustin, you're forcing traffic onto other streets such as Riverside. And we've had several letters from people on Riverside. You need to think, I know on Holly Lane where I live, it's completely turned over and we've got new families. And some days there's so many little green men on the street urging people to slow down with their flags so kids can play. And sometimes neighbors will try and block off the street just by virtue of the number of people and putting out the cones and the little green men. Because we all want safe places for our kids to be. And it is an issue in the Heights. And when we talked about sidewalks, the community, the last community gathering I did, was pretty evenly divided because people didn't want to lose their 5-6 feet of planting in the public right-of-way there next to the curb. So we don't have sidewalks, and I would be a real proponent of sidewalks, but we really need the community behind us to do that. And so that's one of the major issues here, but I don't know if there's any more accident reports in the police department than there is in any other street in the Heights. Cars rip along Tustin. Holly Lane, Margaret get a lot of speeding because we get kids from the high school that rip down there. So all of the people in the Heights are feeling this. It's just not this street. What makes this street special is it's a steep street it's narrow. I think it is worthy of consideration, and I think that's evident by the fact that we've gone to a lot of effort to look at this. But we've got anecdotal stories. I'm sure they're all true, but we really need to think about, do we benefit one neighborhood at the expense of the rest? So driving, if you live on Riverside, the count is approximately 200 more cars a day. And in the big scheme of things, that's not really a lot. In traffic, in the traffic world, I'm sure it's not a huge increase. But if you live on Riverside, put your hands up if you want to have 200 more cars a day on your street. So those are the things that we need to think about. But to my knowledge, there hasn't been a reported accident on Tustin, on that street. People are putting their hands up, but if there's a bigger number of reports on Tustin than any other street in the Heights. So now I've lived in Holly Lane. In the time I've been there, I've seen 3 accidents. One was a speeding accident running into a telephone pole in the middle of the block right across the street from my house, high school girl. So it does happen, and I think Santa Ana is a fast street because it's a wide street. And so, we know we have these random speeding events going on in our town more often now than ever. And it's certainly happening in the Heights on virtually every street. So I'd love to support this because I want to support all the neighbors in the Heights, particularly my friends that live in this area. But I don't want to do it to the detriment of other neighbors. And there's a fairness issue here in my view. So to me, there's not a compelling reason to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I'm struggling with this, just trying to, hearing from people and the letters we've received, and just as Mr. Avery said, there is a spillover, the ripple effect to the adjacent streets. I do believe, I don't know if it's unique, because as Mr. Avery said, this is fairly typical of other streets in the Heights, but it is one of the most narrow streets. I like to think there's a solution here somewhere. And people's quality of life has been improved. Safety has been improved. Children can play outside without fearing that they can't, if they get in, they'd be in danger in some way. A couple questions I have. What's the further conversation about sidewalks? Is that off the table?
We haven't had the direct conversation on sidewalks with the residents, no.
I just think that's such a possible solution, to put children and their bikes and people and their dogs on sidewalks. Yes, there is that use of, it's the public right of way, so it's public property to put a sidewalk. In the interest of safety, I think that's where possibly a solution could be found. I guess also, when I asked you earlier about the one-way street, I'm cognizant that there are problems that are ripple effects and spillover effects too, but we are considering an item this evening on Fernleaf. I would like to explore, I guess I'm thinking it's not a closed issue yet. We should still find a solution to this. Maybe do a trial over a period of time of making it a one-way street. I'm not in favor of the 2 barriers down at Avon and Tustin. I think that's problematic. I think the solution that you've been testing all these months has had many benefits. Maybe do a trial on one-way streets option, do more community interaction on the concept of a sidewalk. I'm not ready to say we're done with this yet. I think we still can find a solution here somewhere. So that's where I am.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Blum.
Thank you, Mayor. So typically I hate any kind of closures of public access to anywhere. But I think as you look at this neighborhood in general and kind of the way it was shaped and as it was built and the lack of true continuation from where Tustin is to where Tustin begins again off a cliff. And I do drive those streets a lot. I very rarely actually make the left to the other left to get through the little neighborhood. And as you pull it up on the map and kind of take a look at it, it does seem like it's already built as a cul-de-sac. And since it's predominantly residents going through and it's not about a thoroughfare, I think it would probably be in everyone's best interest, though, to see what closing the bottom would look like, to kind of see if there's a lack of traffic that makes it easier for the neighborhood, especially if it was a one-way out, maybe making more access for the neighborhood itself, putting signs up that say, you know, not a through street, up off of cliff, something so that we can get both sides of the data plane to really, maybe it's better for the residents there, maybe they greatly appreciate the bottoms closed rather than the top, because it really sounds like the major issue is people flying up Tustin rather than them cutting down through. And if it's not an easy way to get out, maybe the only access is all the way around Ocean View for the residents. I think, you know, it didn't cost the city very much to try this trial measure out. I don't think it would cost us very much to take data from both sides and kind of make the most reasonable decision we could on something like this. And I'm sensitive to other traffic being created in other neighborhoods. I have a general disdain for one-way streets in general because I think they just push traffic continuously around and make people drive loops and vary in the streets that they wouldn't necessarily be on. But I think the best solution here, from my perspective, would be to see what a bottom closure would look like, how the residents react, because we hear from all of you, and we do want to listen, and we do want to do what's best for up there. And as I was walking it the other day, I think the upper closure, the biggest issue I think we have is what becomes of that. You know, is the city going to build something on the street that we're going to maintain? Is going to become a dollar and cent issue for us to have a green belt or something like that? You know, and then all of a sudden that gets into a much larger conversation. At the bottom, it definitely looks like it could be built to kind of benefit both residents and the public as well. So those would be my thoughts on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman O'Neill.
After seeing the numbers on the surrounding streets, and it didn't seem like a substantial increase, at least certainly within the realm of, you know, what would be totally acceptable in the upper neighborhood area. I mean, I'd like to have a better understanding of what the negative effects have been of this closure in the surrounding areas. It didn't sound like they were substantial, but they were substantially improved for the residents on Tustin in particular. So, I've pulled on my Google Maps to remind myself, I can't think of another neighborhood that is even remotely looks like this off, you know, PCH. And so I do worry about, you know, closures and having a lot more residents coming and asking us for closures in other parts of the city, but I can't come up with another part of the city where this situation would exist. So I'd like to have a better understanding of what the negative effects have been around the area, but frankly, given what I've seen, I'd support keeping what we've got permanent. So.
Right. Well, anytime you do a traffic closure on a street, you will get diversion of traffic. So it's not going to go away. It's going to go somewhere. And so that's the comments we've been getting from other streets in the area is it's transferred traffic to my street, and I'm seeing additional traffic. I have concerns. So those are the primary comments we're getting. Like I said, it's those increased volumes on those streets are within the realm of.
Tony, can we pull the presentation back up? Because I mean, I understand what you're saying, but when I'm looking at the numbers, the increases were. I mean, it seemed like you know, if we're going to be trusting the numbers, which, yeah, let's go back. Yeah, go forward one.
Sorry.
It's okay.
It's going all over the place.
That one.
There, that one. So as I mentioned, that we do see that distribution, that diversion, redistribution of traffic on the streets in the area. Avon is a business street. So, you know, those businesses front Avon, and it's not residences that are being affected. Riverside is the one street I think I've heard more from in terms of residents on Riverside and their concerns for the shift of traffic. So, and Ocean View to a lesser extent, but both Tustin and Ocean View are very low volume residential streets.
So you were, I'm sorry, Tony. I
So
apologize.
those are, I mean, that's essentially what the traffic numbers are showing us is yes, there is a shift of that volume of traffic, and we do see a reduction on Tustin of about 550 cars, and it's being redistributed to the streets around it.
Okay, and so when we're looking at this, we're saying on Riverside, they've got an increase of about 150, well, almost 200 per day. And you were saying earlier that the, an acceptable level for a residential street is between 2,000 and 3,000.
Yes.
And so they bumped up to the very low end of what you would consider to be acceptable in the.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Councilman Avery.
Yeah, is there a way to do it? Obviously, it'd have to be open, but, I mean, I'm happy to support this, but I think I just want to see more evidence. And one evidence is the speeding side of it. And obviously, is it possible to measure that?
We have.
Yeah.
We've measured the speeds on these streets. We've measured the speeds on Tustin. And as I mentioned, because when you get a narrow street, it's automatically going to reduce the speeds that people drive on it because it feels constricted with parking on both sides. So we've measured what we call the 85th percent speed, which means that 85% of the cars are going that speed or lower. And the 85th percent speed on Tustin ranges from 23 to 25 miles an hour. Now, so that still, you're talking about another 15% there, the people above that number. So there will be some people that are going to go up there at 40 miles an hour, and that's going to feel extremely fast to the resident that's sitting there watching that car. There's going to be a handful of cars that are going that speed, but the great majority of the cars that are driving up Tustin are going at a 25 mile an hour speed.
Do you think you would get the same results on any other street in the Heights?
We see slightly higher speeds on other streets in the Heights because they're slightly wider. And so you will see more along the lines of the upper 20s, 28, 29, 30 miles an hour in those streets. But again, that's the 85th percentiles, and they don't meet that L26.
Right. Thank you.
And I think there was one question about accident history, and we did do research on accident history. When we've seen accident reports come in, they've been predominantly, let's say, a side swipe of a parked vehicle. And so, and we've seen that on Riverside. We've seen it on a number of streets. Great many times, property damage type accidents, and many of those DUI related. So yes, there are accidents, but I wouldn't call it a high accident history, but there are reported accidents.
On Tustin?
On Tustin, on Riverside, on many of the
Right,
streets in
sure.
the Heights, right. Yeah, there are reported accidents, but I wouldn't put it in the high accident category.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Duffield.
Thank you, Mayor. So I think there's four things that I would consider making this street different than other streets. First of all, it's the steepness, and the fellow that mentioned having to back into the driveway to get out. I'm sure you don't have to do that on Holly, but you've got to do it here. Second one would be the right turn. When you get finally up to the top and around and down to Riverside, you got a blind turn in a way because the cars coming up, you can't really see them until it's too late. And then third is it's a shortcut. That's what it is. It's a shortcut. That's why Councilman Avery used it. He didn't have to drive all the way around Riverside. It was a shortcut. And then, the bars is a good mention. I know there were a lot of bars a long time ago there, but there are significantly more. And I would believe in the statement's correct. It's a good way to reduce the amount of opportunity you may have to get arrested. So that's what makes it kind of unique, and I don't have answers to all the impact it has to the other streets. I think it's kind of it's not that much, but these four things are what's real, and sadly, because no one has perished there, we're just dodging this whole thing which, anyway, those are my comments, and I don't know what the right solution is, but I think what we're all trying to do is make it better, so let's keep working on it.
Thank you. Councilman Dixon.
Yeah, one more question. Would you mind, Tony, putting that map up, the same map that you just had a moment ago? When we talk about the impact on Riverside, the additional traffic, cars that roll over to Riverside, correct me if I'm wrong, but many, I don't want to say all, but many of the homes on Riverside front Ocean View, don't they? Their driveways are on Ocean View, isn't that correct? So when I'm driving down, I rarely am on Ocean View, but when I drive Riverside a lot, and you look up and there's steep hills there to the backyards. I don't see driveways on Riverside. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, the section of Riverside that I'm really referring to that we've been hearing more comments about is Riverside north of Cliff. So
all right.
So
Well,
that's the segment actually north of Cliff, where Cliff Drive comes in. That's the section we're talking about.
Please, in the audience.
Around the corner there where it curves.
Quorum. 1 second, Councilman.
I'm sorry.
We need to respect decorum, and I'm advocating for you, so respectfully, thank you, Councilman.
So that curve, is that what you're talking about? That's where the driveways enter on?
The driveways on Riverside north of Cliff, they have an alley. So the garages come in off the alley, the back.
So.
But when people are concerned, when they've indicated their concerns, they're talking about their concerns for speed and volumes, and that's the segment that we're talking about is north of Cliff.
Right, well, I'm just going to make an assumption. I mean, the potential danger is greater to the people who are walking on a narrower street on Tustin than there are on Riverside, because there aren't cars exiting their driveway and backing or fronting out their driveway. Their life circumstances are different on Riverside. The egress into your home is off Ocean View or through an alley, as you just described. Anyway, I think what my recommendation is to the mayor, to the council, is we keep studying this. I'm not opposed to studying the Avon-Tustin closure. I'm looking for possible solutions. We should study as many as we can. We have residents, over 2/3, if not 80% of the people want some kind of relief to their quality of life. So that sends a message to me. Let's try to find a solution that works. We could do some testing on the bottom, do the speed testing at 10 o'clock at night. Do your speed tests run any hour? They're not.
Yes, we generally leave up the speed counters for, a few days at a time.
Okay.
So we're collecting data throughout.
So we have a super traffic engineering staff. I know you care very much about how to solve this problem. Let's keep working it. That's where I am.
And Mayor, if I could just interject.
No.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so we have no other comments from the dais. I'm going to comment. Yes, you may, Dave. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just had some relevant information. I see the council would like to, not for all of them, but maybe there's a sense to try a little bit more. It sounds like a bottom closure might be something we want to look at. I just want one slide just to make some evidence for folks. I put a pocket slide in there just to make a point. Some of the commercial properties right at the corner of Avon, if we can get this slide, connect off Ocean View. It's the next slide, Tony, or last slide. And just so we there we go right there. If you look at that corner building there, you'll notice the parking lot's off Ocean View. So they access through the neighborhood, whether it's closed on the top or the bottom. And then right above that, you'll notice there's a little alley that cuts through residential and does connect to Avon through another commercial property. I don't think it's a big problem. We're happy to try a bottom closure. It might make a lot of sense, particularly when you break residential from commercial. It might make more sense, but you do have something we'd have to deal with the property owners anyway on how to solve that. So just a heads up to the folks if we do afford in that.
Great, and I'll just conclude with my comments. I would support one way to reduce access. I'd prefer one way, but I know it's not always that simple. And that doesn't necessarily have to be one way exactly at the bottom, but so that you can't go all the way up. Perhaps going the other direction, and I would also support a sidewalk. It's kind of tight it is for two, let's just make it one lane, in my opinion. But regardless of how I feel, I think there's a consensus to keep working to find a solution. Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes.
So I think for the direction for staff then, are we hearing that you'd like for us to look at additional options or look at potentially putting in the bottom closure in as a, I guess I'm maybe looking for a little bit more
Yeah,
for
so I
staff.
think bottom closure, one way, those are two things that were discussed.
Okay.
Sidewalks, I don't think I heard anyone support cul-de-sac. What, did I? Councilman O'Neill supports cul-de-sac, and Duffy support cul-de-sac. So you could propose that as well.
Okay, so would you like us to come back to council after doing a little further research?
Yeah,
or okay.
Yes, unless you need more direction, I think you can come back with a solution or two to offer.
We could do that, and then on the sidewalk itself, if maybe it's straw vote, because that would be a capital project and expenditure of money. If you all are in favor, I don't think we can condition the residents. The city would have to put the sidewalk in. I believe we have the right of way. We could pick a side, which makes most sense. But
Well, the sidewalk, I feel, is contingent upon which plan we'd want to do.
okay,
So I'm sure the money's there for it if that's the plan we want to go forward with.
we just need direction. But we can work on the closure and get the traffic figured out, and then we'll have the sidewalk discussion.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you. All right, now it's time for public comments on agenda and non-agenda items. Anyone would like to speak on that? Yes, please come forward.
This is a total shift of gears, a non-agenda item. Good afternoon. My name is Mike Butel. I live at 307 Grand Canal, Balboa Island. My great-grandfather moved our garage apartment to the island on a barge in 1937. He hand-built our front house in 1948. I have lived on and off Balboa Island for 75 years. I brought my neighbor with me, Les Hewitt. He and I have been neighbors. He lives at 303 Grand Canal. We have been neighbors for 68 years. He's also my friend. Last week, the house next between us at 305 Grand Canal closed escrow to a billion-dollar company called Picasso. I'll spell it, P-A-C-A-S-O. Their intention is to convert the single-family resident to 8, I'll repeat that, 8 fractional ownerships, basically timeshares. The entire property will have been turned over to a management company, and Picasso will walk away with a couple $1 million in profit. A lot of people don't even know that this is going on. This has happened twice previously in Newport Beach, one down at the West End and one also on Balboa Island, 121 Emerald. I think the neighbors on Emerald have been up here and you've heard their nightmare, that's the word they use, situation. As of last Saturday, and this is something that the council is probably not aware of, I was looking at the Picasso website. There are 2 new properties advertised as fractional ownerships in Newport Beach. One on the ocean front and another one on the Grand Canal. Now, I am not naive enough to think that I'm going to get any relief from this council on this issue. My neighbors and I will respond to Picasso with the best of our abilities, but there's a greater concern here. As long as Picasso can make huge amounts of money from these conversions, they will continue. I'm requesting that the council be proactive in their approach to fractional ownership issues. You are aware of the St. Helena, Palm Desert, as well as Napa and Carmel are wrestling with this situation. It's a tough one, and I acknowledge that. My request to the council is twofold. Number one, for you to continue to have your staff, city attorney, look for ways to stop these conversions. And number two, for all members of the council to support Councilmember Dixon's proposal to deal with this. I have just one question for each member of the council, as well as anybody in the sound of my voice. How would you feel if the property next door to you was sold and converted into 8 fractional ownerships? Thank you for your attention and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Gary Cruz from Newport Island, and I just want to reinforce what this gentleman just said. I'm here to say something else, and I'll cut both of them real short. We just had one sell on Newport Island for $9 million. These are very small homes and a very small neighborhood. And what we're afraid of is the changing in the residents, changing in the neighborhood. We're talking about circumventing zoning. We're talking about a commercial atmosphere versus a residential atmosphere. And the only thing that's going up faster than Stop Picasso signs are for sale signs. People are going to sell their homes. They're going to reap the benefits of this, and it's going to change the demeanor of our neighborhood, and we don't want that. Real quickly, with regards to Measure B, I'm hoping and pleading that we can get public forums on this topic. Public needs to be informed, as opposed to letters going back and forth, letters to the editors. Let's take some opportunity to inform the residents in public forums, give and take. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mr. Mayor, thank you, City Council. My name is Russ Dahl. I am a real-life example. I do live next door on the peninsula to a Picasso home. Spoke to the council last, I think it was October. We've hired law firms to help us look at this issue, written multiple letters. We do ask that you look at this issue. And as the neighbors Balboa and other Newport communities have said, there is a proliferation of these properties going up. They're moving very quickly because we're not scrutinizing them. And in addition to Picasso, on Miramar Avenue a week ago, a second property on the peninsula sold to another company called Ember. It is a Picasso lookalike, copycat. $4 million sale price. It's for sale today in fractional interest. That total $4.8 million. So we ask that you look at this. It is proliferating, and thank you for your attention. I won't repeat what everybody else has said. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
My name is Kathy Brown. I live at 1706 Miramar, directly behind the home that's next door to Russ that we came last October and discussed. And several of the council members said, be kind, be welcoming to our new neighbors, which we were. I have spoken with every member of the 8 that have moved in. They've all been polite. That's not the issue so far, because we have summer yet to come. It's when they leave and then the cleaning crew comes in and they may leave a garage door open. They may not put the trash cans out. And we're not zoned to have a different family come in every weekend. We're zoned 1. It's residents, people that are supposed to live there for over a month at a time, at least, if you're going to lease it out. And that's not happening. They're coming in and out. They're staying 2-3 days max. They're being polite so far. We're asking you to please, as our council members, and represent us and shut this down, because it's not working. It's disrespectful to us as homeowners that have taken such pride in our homes that you as city council members have not supported shutting it down. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi there, Council. I have a similar situation, but different. I live in the Lido Sands community down on the peninsula. I've been a homeowner since 1996. And in the Lido Sands area, it's all families, and we have a rec center there, and it's really great. I'm on River Avenue. Across the street, one by one, the Saritz Properties Company has bought all of the places, kicked all the families out, and made duplexes and turned them into vacation rentals. Now, from 49, the last home on 49th Street all the way to 51st Street, there's 7 units in a row with 2 units in each one. That's 14 vacation rentals on one block, and I'm right across the street. And it literally, there's teams that go there. There's sometimes 10, 15 people in each unit. There's teams that's come and do, training and whatnot. There's families, and everybody's pretty nice. It's not the people. It's not their fault. But the Ubers, till 2-3 in the morning, buses every morning. The traffic. There's only a sidewalk on one side of the street, and their cars are always blocking the sidewalk. So you have to walk around. If you're walking your dog, you got to walk around the cars into the street. It's only a matter of time before something happens. Also, with the trash collection, when everybody checks out, the trash goes out and then it never goes back in. So I got to go across the street and put all the trash cans back so the street sweeping can go through. And this neighborhood was just not meant for that, to be that. It's literally living across the street from a hotel. And it's only a matter of time before there's some car accidents or whatever. And it's loud. The people are pretty nice. The police have been there several times. For the most part, people are nice, but I just don't see if we have a housing shortage in Newport Beach that we're always trying to issue, that's 14 families that have been displaced for vacation rentals. And it's just not that street and neighborhood is not meant for that. So I'm just saying that could you look at, or someone look at the River Avenue area for vacation rentals, because it's really hurt our neighborhood and hurt our quality of life. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Anyone else wishing to speak, please come forward as well.
Mayor Muldoon, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. I just had a comment about comments. Several of the comments you just heard were actually about an agenda item coming up tonight, which is Roman numeral 13, called Matters Which Council Members Have Asked to Place on a Future Agenda. I think it's confusing to people. I realize one of the council members sent out an email encouraging people to advocate to you for voting one way or another. But this item 13 at one time was listed as a non-discussion item. It no longer is listed as that. It's a real agenda item, and you take real action here. When you take a vote, the matter is either coming back on an agenda or the matter dies. And even more confusingly, on the agenda, it appears shortly after something says notice to the public, telling people that they can comment then. But tonight, the mayor normally does not ask for any comment, but before you take those votes on whether to put something on the agenda or not. I would submit to you it would be a lot more logical and a lot more convenient to the public if they didn't have to come to the study session to comment on an item coming up later in the night. And that could be solved simply by the mayor inviting public comment on these items to be put on a future agenda at that moment, as you do with all other agenda items. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Okay, seeing none in the chambers, for procedural reasons, I have to ask, because with council members out of state, are there any public comments from the state of Arizona? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Harp, do we have a closed session announcement?
Thank you, Mayor Muldoon. The City Council will adjourn a closed session to meet with the city's labor negotiators regarding negotiations with the Newport Beach Police Management Association, the Newport Beach Fire Management Association, the Association of Newport Beach Ocean Lifeguards, as well as the city clerk. And that's all set forth on the agenda under item number 4A and B. The city clerk will recuse herself from item number 4B based on the potential impact on our finances. Thank you.
Thank you. A recess until 6 p.m. for the regular meeting.
Would only vote in the event so you have one council member absent or recused. And I'm not saying that the mayor isn't important.
Call to meeting order for the April 12, 2022 regular city council meeting. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
The record will reflect that Councilmember Brenner is present at a teleconferencing location pursuant to Government Code 54953B at 100 Arroyo Roble Road, Sedona, Arizona. Now I will conduct roll call verbally. Councilmember O'Neill.
Here.
Councilmember Duffield. Here. Councilmember Dixon.
Here.
Councilmember Brenner.
Present.
Councilmember Avery.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Blom.
Here.
And Mayor Muldoon.
Present. Mr. Harper, is there a closed session report?
Thank you, Mayor Muldoon. There's no closed session report this evening.
Great. Now it's time for invocation by council members. We had a speaker who was going to be here. Is the Monsignor here? Nope. So I will do invocation this evening, and then we'll have Council Member O'Neill do the pledge. Holy Father, we thank you for the blessings you've given us. You've given us this opportunity to govern ourselves and to live in a free country. We pray for those who are in need, especially those who are victims of war in Ukraine and other parts of the country. We pray for our fellow citizens that we may love our neighbors. We pray, God, that we may love you. We're thankful for the countless blessings you've given us. We pray that we keep our minds focused on you this Easter. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Please place your hands over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, notice of the public.
The City Council of Newport Beach welcomes and encourages community participation. Public comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per person to allow everyone to speak. Written comments are encouraged as well. The City Council has a discretion to extend or shorten the time limit on agenda or non-agenda items.
Thank you. Now it's time for council announcements or reports from council members on committee activities and for council members to request future items be placed on the A1 agenda. Councilman O'Neill, do you have any announcements or reports?
Just a couple. So I was able to attend the Corona Del Mar High School musical, which was phenomenal. And it's amazing to be able to go watch our high school students perform again. It really is. It's good to see. And this was the last. We saw the last performance for the senior class, and a lot of them were crying. It was just they felt so good about the fact that they were able to actually perform. I was able to participate in Library Week by reading to toddlers, which was interesting. I know that might sound crazy, but I actually prefer this. But it was still pretty fun, and I think they actually caught me doing a little dancing with our staff caught pictures, so I think they're going to auction those off soon. And then the Oasis Sailing Club, they had their opening day, and that was a whole lot of fun. So I just want to say thank you to them. Thanks.
I'd prefer reading to toddlers to council meetings any day, so I'm not surprised. Councilman Duffield.
Well, thank you, Mayor. So I went to my last free, I'm going to try to go more, I'll have to pay, police appreciation breakfast, which is always very emotional and fun. It's something I never knew about, but I've been to, except for our COVID time, we didn't have them, but getting it back again was a lot of fun and great to watch, and they all deserve it. Last week we had a very important meeting held over here in the community room for the rehab home efforts that we're doing with our city, and I think it was well attended. It had to be 100 people, yeah. And Councilwoman Dixon will explain more about it, but I'm just grateful that we are doing the best we can as a city to help these residents and to inform them on what we can and cannot do. And it's a real battle, and we're not going to give up, and we're going to find a way. It's just not easy, but that's it. Thank you.
Councilwoman Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a few items. So let's start with the slides, if whoever is managing the slides. So I want to do a shout out. A few months ago, the council encouraged local residents to consider donating to the bridge shelter that we share with Costa Mesa, which houses about 20 of our homeless, which provides shelter beds and services to the homeless populations in Newport Beach and Costa Mesa. I'm pleased to report that 2 Newport Beach restaurants have answered the call. Wilma's Patio on Balboa Island and Sugar and Spice will each be donating 60 meals once a month to the Costa Mesa Bridge Shelter. So we may be on a roll here. So we want to give a big shout out, thank you to Wilma's Patio and Sugar and Spice for your generous donations. and contributions, and donations are still needed. If other restaurants and eateries are interested in donating to the shelter, please contact Homeless Coordinator Natalie Besmajian at 949-718-1991. I'll say that again, 949-718-1991. So this can be a great program, and it's a good way to contribute to the shelter and offset some operating costs. We have another slide on the Police Appreciation Breakfast, just to show how appreciative we are of our Newport Beach Police Department, and offer my personal congratulations to the officers and civilian employees and volunteers who were recognized at the 49th Annual Police Appreciation Breakfast, March 31st. It was a great event, and it was always is very moving to hear about the outstanding acts of heroism and community service of our police department over the year. And I just want to give a shout out to those who were recognized. They received top honors: Detective Sergeant Brandon Rodriguez, Homeless Liaison Officer Cynthia Carter, Dispatch Supervisor Joe Horton, Range Master Vince Kaiser, and volunteer, the one and only Laird Hayes. Thank you to all. Congratulations to all, to the award winners, and to all the police department. We are so proud. And an announcement: the Aviation Committee will be meeting next Monday, April 18th at 5 p.m. in the community room. Please join us for updates on John Wayne Airport and activities from the aviation subcommittees. And I just want to report on a couple of other things. I, too, read to I think they were toddlers as well, at Balboa Library on April 5th, National Library Week. And it's really wonderful. The staff really makes it easy for us, and so the little kids are appreciative. They're funny. I did attend by Zoom SCAG, Southern California Association of Governments Economic and Human Development Committee, on which I sit, and the Regional Council. These meetings go from 9 to 3 once a month, so I'm really dug in, and it's important that Orange County represent the cities of Orange County against the cities of Los Angeles and other counties, because we need to have our voices heard, especially on RENA and housing matters. And also, there was a mayor's Easter egg roll. There was. I attended. I didn't see any little ones yet because I was only there for a few minutes, about 30 minutes, but I'm sure you'll report on that wonderful event. And the Oasis Sailing Club, which is always a wonderful event. Okay, I think that's it for my announcements. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Brenner.
Yes, I attended the latest Witty lecture series, and it was Charlotte Alter who spoke. Her book is The Ones We've Been Waiting For: How a New Generation of Leaders Will Transform America. So I'm assuming she's talking about you guys. And it was really very interesting because she talked about how each generation has a bit of difficulty understanding the other generations because you haven't experienced the same thing that we've experienced. And I kind of think about that at council sometimes when I realize that the younger people in the council have not experienced the same thing in Newport Beach that I have. So my frame of reference is different. And I'm looking forward to reading her book because I think it might, it adds a little bit of insight to dealing with other people. I also read at the story time at CDM Library, and mine were about 2 years old and younger. And I must say it was sort of like a raucous city council meeting. It was very, very interesting, but it was fun. I also, every Wednesday night, attend my Citizens Police Academy class at the police station. Last Wednesday, we had a presentation on drug enforcement and also on white-collar crimes and some of the different scams that are being perpetrated on our citizens, and it was fascinating. It's fascinating every time. And it was interesting going to the Police Appreciation Breakfast to see a lot of the people that I have seen speak at our Citizens Police Academy. So it really kind of brings you full circle, and it was very, very interesting. I also attended the group residential use community meeting the other night, and it was an excellent meeting. We had more people than we had even thought possible we could fit in the community room. And we had people from the Department of Community Services that has an office in Orange. And they sounded like, when it comes to dealing with group homes for social rehabilitation, that they are going to be more accountable than the state has been on dealing with our sober living homes. So we're hopeful that they are going to do a good job in that regard. I also attended the Oasis Board of Advocates meeting and the general membership luncheon at Oasis. And Diane and I met with Robin Brandt and Rabbi Mintz at the Shabbat Center for Jewish Living. Robin set this up, and it was fascinating. We had a tour of what is 10% of their museum collection, and it is artifacts from the Holocaust and that are made into artworks, and it was fascinating. And this is open for community members to see. The other thing that was interesting was that they do a lot of work with special needs kids there. They have a lot of retired special needs teachers who work with kids who have either cerebral palsy or autism, and they have special rooms that are stimulus. The stimulus is appropriate for where these kids are, and they've got some really amazing success stories there. And they also take the older kids and they do a training program for their restaurants there in their kitchen. So it was a fascinating day, and we would like to have him. Diane and I asked if he could come and make a presentation to council sometime about what they have there, because it's something that we really wanted people to know about. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. I've done that tour too. It's very nice.
Yes.
Councilman Avery.
Thank you, Mayor. It was really great to get the invitation to the police breakfast and attend that and honor our heroes the past couple of years in the police department. And it's been discussed here before, but I'd just like to say it's very good for me to go to, because it just sort of re-engages me with how special our Newport Beach Police Department personnel officers are. It's really something, and the volunteers, and a great turnout. It was so great to see everybody there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Blum.
I have nothing.
Thank you. I also attended the police breakfast, and I had the honor of standing up on the stage while the recipients were given awards for their valor and courage and level-headedness. And my walkaway observation is the chief is the coolest guy in the room, because no one wanted to stand close to me. They want to stand closer to the chief, which is a testament to what kind of boss he is and what kind of department we have. The 7th annual Mayor's Easter egg roll occurred on the grass wall behind you all here at City Hall, and except for a sprinkler malfunction in the middle of the Easter egg roll commencement, it was a huge success, and my son enjoyed it, as did countless others. And it's a great event put on by our recreational staff. 2 items quickly to show in the overhead. The first is the grant application process for community programs. So the application period for community program grants and special events grants open today. Between now and May 3rd, the city will accept applications from 2 types of organizations: those that provide community programs available to Newport Beach residents, and those seeking financial support for Newport Beach-based events. The grants are competitive, and submitting an application does not guarantee funding. For more information and the online application, visit newportbeachca.gov/grants. And the deadline is Tuesday, May 3rd at 5 p.m. The next slide, we have the Mayor's Challenge. Thank you. Please join me this month in the 2022 National Mayor's Challenge for Water Conservation, sponsored by the Wyland Foundation. Of course, Wyland is famous for his paintings of the ocean. The Mayor's Challenge is a friendly competition each April between cities across the U.S. to see who can be the most water-wise. Mayors nationwide are challenging their residents to conserve water, energy, and other natural resources on behalf of city through an online pledge. The pledge takes less than a minute, and you'll be automatically entered to win prizes. Last year, the challenge awarded more than $50,000 in prizes to nearly 300 residents in U.S. cities. Cities with the highest percentage of residents who take the challenge will win the WaterWise designation. And the year's challenge runs through April 30th. As of today, I thought it was fifth place. It says we're sixth place, so we're already slipping among cities nationwide of similar size. So I took the pledge today, and you don't have to check every box, but you'll quickly see how much water you will save and energy you'll save by doing a couple things. Please help us get to number one by going to www.mywaterpledge.com and taking the pledge today. Yes, Councilwoman Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one more reminder. Last March 31st, a week ago, I guess it was, we joined the city clerk with the annual civic engagement awareness. And this is the period now, Madam Clerk, that you're accepting applications from citizens, residents to apply to serve on a council appointment, seek a council appointment to a board or committee or commission. And the application period is open until
noon on May 11th.
May 11th, noon at May 11th. So this is a message to all who are interested in serving your city on a council appointment, like on a committee like the Finance Committee or Parks, Beaches, and Recreation or the Library Board of Trustees, and get your applications in now. The applications are valid for 2 years, and there are 11 openings. Is that my memory serve me correct? So this is a good opportunity for anyone who's interested in serving the city to apply for a council appointment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we're moving on to matters which council members have asked to place on a future agenda. These are not matters that are open for debate, and a simple show of 3 hands of support will require staff to come back with the report. So 3 for basically the item to prevail. Madam Clerk?
The first item is consideration of directing staff to monitor cities with fractional ownerships and report back to the City Council in 6 months.
Okay, please raise your hands, or for Councilwoman Brenner, voice support.
Oh, you know what? I do need to probably do it. Roll
Okay,
call.
you do a roll call? Okay.
Yes, please. Oh, one moment. Councilmember O'Neill?
Yes.
Councilmember Duffield?
Yes.
Councilmember Dixon? Yes. Councilmember Brenner?
I have a question. I've been talking to Aaron about the possibility of doing a moratorium on fractional ownership. Can we include that in the discussion?
No.
No.
Have to put it place on an A1.
Have to do a separate A1. Okay.
Yes.
Then yes.
Councilmember Avery?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Blum?
Yes.
Mayor Muldoon?
Yes.
That's 7-0 unanimous. The next item is consideration of a resolution requesting that state legislators suspend the gas tax to provide immediate relief to Californians who are paying historically high gas prices. Councilmember O'Neill?
Yes.
Councilmember Duffield? Yes. Councilmember Dixon? Yes. Councilmember Brenner?
Yes.
Councilmember Avery?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Blum?
Yes.
And Mayor Muldoon?
That's my item. Yes, thank you.
Unanimous, 7-0. The last item is consideration of sending formal opposition to Senate Bill 1464, which would in essence mandate law enforcement agencies to enforce health department orders without discretion or face financial penalties by the state. Councilmember O'Neill?
Yes.
Councilmember Duffield?
Yes.
Councilmember Dixon? Yes. Councilmember Brenner?
Yes.
Councilmember Avery?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Blum?
Yes.
And Mayor Muldoon?
That's Mr. O'Neill's item. Yes.
Correct. That's unanimous, 7-0.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, let me take a breath, but first, would you please read the notice regarding public comments on consent calendar?
This is the time in which council members may pull items from the consent calendar for discussion. Those are items 1 through 9. Public comments are also invited on consent calendar items. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record. If any item is removed from the consent calendar by a council member, members of the public are invited to speak on each item for up to 3 minutes per item. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and will all be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. Council members have received detailed staff reports on each of the items recommending an action. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the City Council votes on the motion unless members of the City Council request specific items to be discussed and are removed from the consent calendar for separate action.
Thank you. Councilman O'Neill, do you have any items to pull from the consent calendar or conflicts to announce in items 1 through 9?
I have none.
Councilman Duffield.
Thank you, Mayor. I have to recuse myself on, the item 11. Oh, sorry, you're right.
Okay, you have none? Great. Councilwoman Dixon.
I have none.
Councilwoman Brenner.
None.
Councilman Avery.
I have none.
Mayor Pro Tem Blum.
And I have none.
I'll just be lodging a no vote on item 8. Mayor Pro Tem Blum, do you have a motion?
I do. I'd like to move the balance of consent with the proposed changes to the minutes and lodging a no vote for Mayor Muldoon on number 8.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second by Councilwoman Dixon. Okay, public comments on consent calendars, as items 1 through 9 only. Please come forward. Okay, seeing none in the chamber for procedural reasons because Councilwoman Brenner is outside the state. Are there any public comments from the great state of Arizona? Hearing none. Any additional comments from the dais? All right, seeing none, let's vote.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Aye.
Councilmember Duffield,
Aye.
Councilmember Dixon,
Aye.
Councilmember Brenner,
Aye.
Councilmember Avery,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Blum,
Yes.
and Mayor Muldoon.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Thank you. Seeing no items removed from the consent calendar, we will move on to public comments on non-agenda items. Please come forward, please.
Good evening. My name is Susan Skinner, and I am here to share with you the dangers of the Elected Mayor Initiative, Measure B. This proposal creates a dangerously powerful elected mayor and radically changes our current system of government. There are many reasons why residents should be wary of this proposal, but let me describe just one. Right now, the city manager can put items on the agenda, usually routine contracts, et cetera. And I'm just going to throw in that some of the information that's coming out from the proponents of the initiative indicate that only the city manager can put items on the agenda, but that's not correct. This proposal removes the power of the city manager to put items on the agenda, meaning that any time the city manager has city business that must be voted on, she must go through the mayor to place that item on the agenda. This immediately changes the relationship of the city manager from a working partnership to a subservient relationship. The city manager cannot complete the business of the city without the direct intervention of the mayor. You may not be aware that the city charter prohibits city council members from directing most city employees how to do their job. Only the city attorney, city clerk, and city manager report to and are directed by the council. However, if the city manager must maintain a good relationship with the elected mayor in order to simply run the city, might there be a temptation to ask for a quid pro quo? If the mayor wanted a particular development to go through permitting faster, might the mayor slow walk the city manager's agenda items until the city manager helped him accomplish that? Or discipline a particular employee? Or fire them? The council is not allowed to control city employees, but the city manager is, and the city manager will now be beholden to the mayor. Now consider the hiring of the next city manager. No other city anywhere restricts their city manager in this way. So if you were an excellent city manager, would you accept a job that restricts you like this, or would you accept a job elsewhere? And if we can only get a second-rate city manager, might that affect the quality of the people further down on the organizational chart? Why would top-notch employees want to stay in a city that isn't run well? Over time, it is easy to see how an unintentional effect of this proposal could result in a degradation of services for residents. This proposal is bad for Newport Beach. I am not allowed to ask people to vote no on this proposal in council chambers, so we'll simply ask voters to educate themselves on this proposal before they vote. We have nothing to gain and everything to lose if this proposal passes in the June election. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Gary Cruz, and as you can probably tell, I was confused at the previous meeting. I didn't realize there'd be another non-agenda item. I did not know that Dr. Skinner was going to be here, so I'm not going to repeat much of what she said. But my request for public forums is asking pretty much that some questions the public needs to know the details. The devil is always in the details. For instance, the public needs to know what the impact on the budget the office of the mayor will have in the city. There's no mention of that in the proposal, and other cities have experienced an increase in administration cost when an elected mayor has come in. I'd also like to think the public would need to know what the impact of the general plan and in particular the vision statement that was put together some 30-odd years ago, how this will impact that. I know that the vision statement, and I'll kind of quote here, the first concern should be the residents and their quality of life. And I have a little bit of concerns with whether special interests might be put ahead of residents. I also think the public needs to know who is supporting this measure and who is against this measure. I think that's important information to have. I'd also like to, I have questions on whether the level of politics will rise in the city council on that. How much money will it take to run a mayoral campaign? Do we want more politics than we already have? And finally, I think the public needs to know whether this is a solution, looking for a problem. Is the city broke? Do we have a problem here? And I think a public forum is the best place to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other comments? Please come forward.
Hello. My name is Kristen West, and I've been here before. I'm wearing a mask, and I noticed that you all are not. And I feel like there seems to be kind of a brainwashing that has come over the city, where people are kind of in denial. And it's a psychological defense mechanism in which a person is forced with a fact that is too uncomfortable to accept and rejects it instead, and insisting that it is not true despite what may be overwhelming. The subject may use simple denial, and they may deny the reality of the unpleasant fact altogether. They may use minimization, which admit the fact but deny the seriousness and the combination of denial and the rationalization. Also, projection might be used to admit both the fact and the seriousness, but deny the responsibility by blaming somebody else or something else. Everyone is suffering, it seems, from bystander effect and or bystander apathy. And this is a social psychological theory that states that individuals are less likely to offer help to a victim when there are other people present. So there's like a diffusion of responsibility, which leads to denial. And denial is a defense mechanism in which a person is faced with a fact that is too uncomfortable to accept and rejects it instead, insisting that it is not true. Having said that, all the air in the public buildings, all the forced air that is bad for us to breathe, why hasn't anyone done anything about that? The air in here today, why hasn't anyone done anything about that? Why hasn't anyone done anything about the radon lights from the light signals? That can't be good for our eyes. It's obvious they're too bright. I believe there's been a brainwashing and this bystander effect. Everybody wants to pass the buck onto someone else. But I'm not a part of your group, and I believe you are the politicians and the ones that are supposed to get things done. We don't want to blame it on Edison. We don't want to blame it on whoever, but who's in charge? There's a tremendous amount of crime, and no one's following up. I've had a lot of things stolen from me, a lot of vandalism. I've had a lot of, my car's been impounded over and over again. Anyway, so I just feel like the city is a wreck, and I would hope that you would consider the idea of your being brainwashed through your computers and your phones, and consider the source of your information and where you're getting it from.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Hello. My name is Suzanne Welsh, and I work for Orange County Coastkeeper. We're a local environmental nonprofit focusing on healthy water in our communities. We are actually a recipient of the Community Grants Program, and that has funded our Santa Ana River Monitoring Project. We completed our 6-month report and are hoping to enjoy continued support from the city, both in terms of the project and in continuing to apply for these grant opportunities that you offer. I brought copies for it for your staff and for yourself, and I've attached my business card in case you guys have any questions about it. But thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Any other speakers on non-agenda items, please come forward. Okay, seeing none in the chambers, I have to ask because one of our council members is out of state. Are there any comments from home of the Grand Canyon, state of Arizona? Okay, no comments from Arizona. Okay. Now move on to the public hearing. Item 10, do we have any conflicts on this? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have to recuse myself on the item for business reasons.
Thank you, sir.
11. Oh, 10 too.
Okay, staff.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Scott Catlett, your Finance Director. With me this evening is Amber Haston, Senior Budget Analyst in the Finance Department, who is the Project Manager for the fee study this year. I'm going to cover some brief overview slides, and I'll turn it over to Amber to give you some information on the key changes in the fee study. So, as you may know, here in the city, we have a number of different types of fees. The majority of the ones we'll be talking about this evening are cost recovery-based fees, which recover the cost of service that the city provides to end users, such as people getting building permits at the city's counters. We also have some market rate fees that we'll talk about, and there's a few others that are set by law that at a higher level of government we don't have control over. Generally, in our fee study, the council, through policy, sets certain levels of subsidy, and generally the policy is 100% cost recovery. But as you can see here, there's a sliding scale we use, and the most notable one that you may know about that we do subsidize, and that's deliberately, is our recreation fees, which are designed to provide those cost-effective recreation classes to our citizens. That being said, under City Council Policy F4, we are directed to both study this issue annually, and we come every few years with each department's fees, and then again to set 100% cost recovery under the municipal code, except for those services the council has directed us to subsidize. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Amber to go through the 3 departments we're studying this year.
So for our first department, we have the Recreation and Senior Services Department. The fees were last studied in this department in 2016, and the fees cover various services, including recreation classes, special event permits, as well as different programs that support various ages, from youth to adults to preschool children. While the department is not proposing any new fees, there are several key fee changes that are being proposed as part of this update. The first of which is to increase the cost recovery for 5 different program areas. The increase ranges from 2 to 5%, as you can see, for each of those programs that are on the slide before you, increasing the city's costs cost recovery here does still remain within the range that has been previously established by the City Council and is outlined in the municipal code, and also does account for the increase in the city's cost to operate these programs since the last time that the fees were studied in 2016. And so as a result of these proposed changes for these 5 program areas, we are looking at about a 10% increase in the fees within each of these programs. And those are visible on the red line version of the fee schedule that is included in the resolution before you. Next, we have the adult sports fee category, where we're proposing to just administratively reorganize the way that the fees are presented. And then as part of any time that we do complete a fee study update for a department, we do take a look at the way in which the fees are presented in the schedule and ensure that not only are they reflective of the current department operations, but are also categorized in the same manner and listed in the same areas where the actual revenue is recorded. So the changes in this category do relate to that. Next, we similarly have some changes proposed for our natural resources category, proposing to eliminate 7 fees just as a result of a change in the department operation, since the programs and events related to those fees are no longer offered by Recreation. And the final change that the department is proposing is to include a provision to recover 0% of the city's costs associated with the appeal for special event permits in cases where the applicant is successful. And so in including this provision would actually align the structure of this appeal fee and the cost recovery by the city with that of most of nearly all the other city appeals fees. And in doing so, we are also proposing to update the existing cost recovery of 50 to 95% for these appeals fees to be only in cases where the applicant is unsuccessful. So collectively, these proposed fee changes do result in approximately an increase of $81,000 to the general fund. Next, we have the Library Services Department. Similar to Recreation, these fees were last studied in 2016, and they include various services, including materials use, interlibrary loans, as well as different services related to passport processing and photos. The department is proposing several key fee changes, first of which is a reduction in the library cancellation charge, really just corresponding to a change in the city's costs to provide that service. In addition, and similar to the effort that I outlined for our recreation department, we are proposing a similar just administrative reorganization and update in order to ensure that the way in which the fees are listed in the fee schedule does correspond to the department operations, as well as any changes that have been previously approved by the Library Board of Trustees. And finally, for the fee change for the Library Services Department, they have the passport photo fee. We are proposing to increase the fee from $10 to $25. This does change our cost recovery to be fully recovering the costs for that service, which was at the direction of the Finance Committee. The department is also proposing 3 new fees. The first 2 are per-page copy fees from central printers. The department does have 2 existing per-page copy fees that are from self-service copiers, but the equipment, the depreciation volume, as well as the labor component for staff that do assist in just the general use of the printers varies, so it was necessary to separately cost that service. However, in order to keep the fees consistent, we are recommending to recover less than 100% of the cost for those fees and align those with the existing per-page copy fees at 15 cents per page for black and white and 45 cents per page for color. The final new fee for the Library Services Department is test proctoring at $24, and this does differ from your traditional test proctoring where it's not 100% supervised. This just covers the staff time associated with processing the application as well as just occasional monitoring at a central work pace. These changes and new fees are estimated to increase the city's revenue by $20,000 to the general fund. Next, we have the Fire Prevention Division of the Fire Department. The fees in this division were last updated in 2020 and cover a range of services from inspections to different types of reviews for plans, as well as different permits. While the fees in this division were not ordinarily due to be studied as part of this update, the staff did take a look at the percentage in which we were recovering our costs for these services, as outlined in our municipal code, as well as the relatively high general fund subsidy of about $900,000 that we had included in the update for you last year related to the fees. And so in reviewing those items, as well as considering the current department operations with our chief, we are proposing several key changes related to the fees in this division. The first of which relates to certain state mandated inspections that are noted for you on the slide. There has been a change in the staff that are actually completing these inspections. And so as a result, we've updated the staff component of these fees to reflect the time of fire life safety specialists in lieu of fire captains or firefighter paramedics. That change, coupled with our recommendation to increase the city's cost recovery to 100% for these services, have actually resulted in either fee decreases or a relatively low net increase for these 4 inspection fees before you. In addition to that key change, we are also proposing a methodology change for the operational permits in the fire division. While these permits are completed by the full engine company that is comprised of the fire engineer, the firefighter paramedic, as well as the fire captain, they do have to remain on call while completing these services. And so if there is an emergency, then they will have to leave that inspection and respond. And so in looking at the methodology, we are proposing a change there to not have the entity or the permittee bear that full burden of the engine company and actually only take about a third of what the rate is or has been to date. And that third is calculated based off of an average between the fire captain and the firefighter paramedic. And so that change, coupled with, again, our recommendation to increase the cost recovery associated with these services to 100%, does result in 2 fee increases for both level 1 and level 2 that is on the slide before you. So as part of these 2 key fee methodology changes, and just in the overall study of the division fees, we did go ahead and complete a survey of comparable Orange County fire agencies, and that survey showed that not only were most of the other agencies fully recovering the costs of these services, but that even if we were to increase our fees to 100%, then the city's fees would still remain comparable. And so in knowing that, in addition to the recommendations on this slide, we are proposing to increase all of the services and fees within the fire prevention division to 100% cost recovery. In doing so, that would eliminate the city's current general fund subsidy of about $900,000. And then collectively, these fee changes will result in an increase in revenue to the general fund of approximately $84,000. In addition to these updates for our study departments, we also are proposing other updates for our all departments category. This includes the notary services fee, which we're just proposing to increase to align that fee with what is permitted by the government statute. And then we are also proposing 3 new fees in this category. These will be based on actual cost, and they will be calculated utilizing the full hourly and burdened rate of personnel. The first of which is user services that are not otherwise identified in our fee schedule. And so this is really meant to provide a mechanism for the city to still recover our costs that are incurred for services that may be infrequent in nature or atypical that we wouldn't otherwise have the ability to do. In addition, we also are similarly including a recommendation for appeals that are not otherwise specified. So this would, again, serve as that provision for any appeals that may not have been specifically outlined or that may be infrequent in nature, and still provide that mechanism to recover our costs. However, we are recommending to align the cost recovery for this appeals not otherwise specified to be consistent with nearly all of our other appeal fees, which would be 0% of cost recovery when an applicant is successful, and 50% when an applicant is unsuccessful. In addition, as part of our all departments, we are also proposing to include a provision to waive fees, which would be delegated to the authority of the city manager or the finance director. The criteria in which a fee may be waived would be up to $5,000 per occurrence. And it also would be used in very limited circumstances. This would really only cover when a fee may be incorrect or where we may know that a fee may be higher than the actual cost of providing that service and shouldn't actually be charged. We have additional updates as part of this fee study for our non-study departments. The first of which relates to our harbor department. We are proposing a new fee that covers the renewal of marine activities permit for service providers. We do currently have a renewal fee, but this would be to help differentiate between the two different business types that have these permits. And that's really just due to the different amounts of staff time that go into that process. In addition, for our community development department, we are proposing 2 new fees. These fees relate to the building permit extension beyond the initial 3-year limit that has been established by the City Council. The council may recall that at the last meeting, an ordinance was approved to allow the building official to approve or review the first extension request. And so to correspond to that change, we are proposing this fee at $208 for the first request, which does cover the staff time by the building official. And then for any subsequent extension requests thereafter, that was proposed at $1,379, and that does include a public noticing component, the staff time associated with scheduling the hearing officer, as well as the time of the hearing officer. In addition, we wanted to provide an update to the City Council as it pertains to our Public Works Department and the RGP dredging permit. The council may recall that this item was discussed as part of the fee study during our last update last year. And ultimately, we did receive direction to return with a recommendation, not only on the fee itself after we'd had an opportunity with hopefully about a year of data to take a look at what impact the increased fee may have had on any of the permittees and their decision to proceed with dredging, as well as whether there was an appropriate cost recovery percentage or incentivizing approach that would continue to encourage that activity. Subsequent to the council direction, we actually had the discovery of invasive algae in the harbor, which ultimately placed a halt on the activity that we would have otherwise used as a baseline for this analysis. And so in light of that and not having any additional information to make a recommendation before you, we are recommending to defer any changes at this time until the time at which the public works fees are studied, which is in fiscal year 23-24. And that happens to kind of coincide with when we expect to have that first full year of data of permittees that would be operating under the increased fee. And finally, from other fee updates that we wanted to provide for you, these have either been discussed by the Finance Committee or have come up with staff since that meeting. The first of which relates to our appeals fees. And as I've noted throughout the presentation and in line with, I think, the effort and policy decision by the city to not discourage potential appellants from the right to appeal due to any of our fees being cost prohibitive, we did receive a recommendation from the Finance Committee to take a look comprehensively of all of our appeal fees and make a recommendation to align the cost recovery structure with the structure that is presented on the slide before you, both for cases where applicants are successful as well as those that are unsuccessful. And so as part of that recommendation, we plan to do that as part of the next fee study and bring a recommendation forward to the council at that time. And finally, we do have certain fees that are eligible for CPI increases this fiscal year or next fiscal year starting July 1st, 2022. These would be for departments that had fee updates as part of prior resolutions. As you may have seen today, we did have an update on the CPI that was released, which is 8.5%, even higher than the percentage change from February of the prior year to February. And so since that has consistently been our methodology and just due to that large percentage, we are recommending, at least just for this 1 year, to alternatively increase those eligible fees by 2%. And really just noting that a large portion of our cost of service fees are really calculated utilizing staff time and our salaries and benefits, and just noting that we would never want to increase our fees higher than the cost of actually providing the service. With that, I'll turn it over to Scott.
Great. Thank you.
So in closing, just wanted to point out that estimated revenue impact from these changes would be $608,000 in the upcoming year. And then relative to subsidies, I know the council is always mindful of subsidizing things and not wanting to do that unless it's appropriate. So with the changes today, fire prevention will go to $0 subsidy. We'll still have the subsidy in recreation, then a very minimal subsidy in library. So in total across the whole city, $7.7 million, but 7.1 of that is recreation fees. And And then finally, I just want to let the council know that we're looking at the format of the fee schedule as well as the attachments that are provided to the council. See if we can find a way to make this a little bit simpler for the public and the council to digest. So with our new consultant we'll be hiring with the upcoming RFP, we're going to look at simplifying those documents and bringing back some recommendations to the Finance Committee for their consideration next year. With that, the schedule's before you. We'll have second reading at the next council meeting, assuming that the council approves this evening. And the fees will be effective July 1st. Recommendation this evening would be to conduct the public hearing and turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any comments from the dais? Councilman Avery.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for what was obviously a big effort to get this figured out and the spirit of it to not have the cost of service be any higher than the cost of the city to provide that service. And then the effort towards transparency about the fee schedule, about how we arrive at the fees is really important, because I think a lot of people don't quite understand fees versus taxes. And when they see that this is really the cost to all of us in Newport Beach, we share it equally. And I just think this is an excellent presentation, and it takes, I think, a lot of effort to do what you did in terms of, backing off on some fees and really figuring out the true cost of those fees. And that's a great service to the public.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I agree. Just the transparency, the format change, and the forthcoming format change, I think is going to be appreciated by all of us. Just have a couple questions. Council Policy F4, that the council establish appropriate cost recovery targets for its fee structure and will annually adjust its fee structure. So obviously we're not doing that. You just want to comment on that? This has been 6 years since we looked at some of these functions, so and I'm sure there's a good reason. I'm not trying to be critical. I just, what would, as the new finance director, you've been here a year now, what would you think is our reasonable expectation on how often these fees would be adjusted?
Well, I think our policy generally is to look at these every 3 to 4 years, and so that we're certainly on a cycle where we rotate through those, particularly for the departments that are more impactful from a revenue standpoint. So that is definitely our goal.
But so 6 years was probably a little longer than
Were there ones that were
2016.
Recreation?
Yeah, and another
I'd
one.
have to look back at the history of why recreation hasn't been studied in 6 years. I'm not sure, but I can tell you that the policy, my understanding, has been 3 to 4 years, and I certainly would intend to maintain that.
Okay, and then on page 12, I just want the community to know that while we are talking tonight about fees that affect private use, so these are not serving the entire population. These are private fee. These are private. You're using your chart where you identify it as for private use, and so they're fees that reflect that actual cost to the city. But we are subsidizing, nonetheless, 7.7 million of those fees, where we give a break and for whatever the type of program is, and I'm very supportive of that. So we have, the municipal code requires 100% cost recovery, but we do waive that in exceptional circumstances.
Yes, the council, through the municipal code, adopts subsidies for very specific fees, and certainly recreation is the most significant example of that. And the council is certainly free to adjust those cost recovery percentages should the council wish to do so.
And I know in prior years when we've looked at that from the staff report, it's not in your presentation, where we've kind of looked at the percentage of recovery and we kind of adjusted it from the dais. Now, we're not doing that tonight. I'm okay with that. I trust the Finance Committee. I trust you and putting together, and the city manager in putting together these recommendations. I just want the community to know that 7.7 million is a lot that we waive and subsidize, and that for the right reasons. But that's important information too to share. Okay, thank you. Very well done.
Thank you. And I just want to mention for the public that some of you did attend the Finance Committee meeting where we took this in some serious depth and pretty much went through every single fee, kind of where we could adjust them and what's important to give back to the community. And that 7.7 million truly is a community benefit. Classes, all the kind of recreation things that we come to know and appreciate here. So I think that is a huge number to look at, but it's also something that I think we look through, and you guys did an amazing job on this, so thank you.
Okay, so no other comments from the dais. Let's go out to the public. Yes. If anyone else would like to speak on this item, please come forward now.
Mayor Muldoon, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosher. First, I think I heard it correctly. Early in the presentation, we heard that the review of the fire prevention fees was going to eliminate $900,000 of subsidies that we're currently paying. And I'm a little confused why, when we got to the summary on slides 11 and 12, there doesn't seem to be much change at all. It says zero in fire prevention subsidies and $84,000 impact. So I'm not quite sure what happened to the 900,000. The main thing I wanted to talk about, though, was to say that I'm pleased to see the Finance Department is recommending to you extending the relatively new concept we have here of refunding appeal fees when an appellant finds that the city made a mistake and their appeal is successful, including adding their catch-all provision, which is in the cost recovery table modification on page 1053, of zero fee for successful appellants and 50% recovery for unsuccessful ones. I'm wondering, though, why we're not tonight making that an across-the-board policy rather than waiting until the next revision of this, because it seems to me if you want to refund appeal fees for successful appellants, that's really a policy decision, not a financial one. You either think that's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. So in any event, we have two major inconsistencies now, which at least one of them is in the planning division, which is a common appeal to the planning commission of planning matters, and there is no refund of that if you are successful. There's also an inconsistency in the new thing for the special events within recreation services. They are recommending the refund, but for unsuccessful appellants, the new fee schedule says the recovery could be anywhere between 50 and 100%, and they're choosing 66%. I don't know why that's different. And then finally, on appeals, attending many city meetings, one appeal that I see very frequently and don't see in the table at all is the ones that come before the Parks, Beaches, Recreation Commission. I don't know if the Finance Committee or Department has missed that because it's not in our municipal code. But frequently the city staff denies a tree removal, and that comes before PB&R, and I've never known whether people are charged for that service or not. And as they have admitted, the schedule is so complicated, I wouldn't even know where to find that in the schedule. And then finally, on that note, I would mention, as a caution though, appeals are not always totally successful or unsuccessful. They can be partially successful, and I'm not sure how the staff is going to handle that or what people will expect when they gain a partial victory on an appeal. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Okay, seeing none in the audience and hearing none from the great state of Arizona, let's bring it back. Is there a motion? Okay. Staff item moved by Mayor Pro Tem Blom. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Dixon.
I'll read the ordinance title first before conducting the vote. Ordinance number 2022-10, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach, amending subsection 3.36.010 of the Newport Beach Municipal Code to clarify the findings related to user services, subsection 3.36.20, to update the definition of user services, amending Exhibit A of section 3.36.30, cost recovery percentages to update the modification percentage for user services, and amending subsection 3.36.030E to update waiver of fees for service. Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilmember Dixon. Yes. Councilmember Brenner. Councilmember Brenner. I will get back to you. Councilmember Avery,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Blom,
Yes.
Mayor Muldoon, Councilmember Brenner. Oh, hold on one. Let me.
The one time we want to hear from Arizona.
Okay, Councilmember Brenner.
I don't know what happened to my sound.
Okay, you are back. And your vote, please?
Yes, aye.
Thank you. The motion carries with Councilmember Duffield recusing himself 6-0.
5-1.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember. Wait, I didn't finish. Oh, sorry. 5-1. Thank you.
Thank you. On the next item.
If I could just briefly, I know that Councilmember Duffield had to leave for another meeting, but he still needs to announce his conflict, which would be for business interest. So he'll be recusing himself from this item.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm Paul Blank, your very grateful harbor master, and I am pleased to be representing your very dedicated Harbor Commission on their recommendations to revisions to the municipal code this evening. I have a very short presentation that maps very carefully or very, very closely to the staff report, which I know you all have. I'm happy to rip through this as quickly as you'd like and then take questions as necessary. The objective is one of the Harbor Commission's 2021 objectives, as it is every year, to review the municipal code and recommend revisions. The intent of that review is always in favor of making the harbor clean, safe, and well enjoyed. Specific topics that are in this recommendation include that list there. There is the objective itself: conduct an annual review of Title 17 and recommend updates to the City Council where necessary. In this case, they went a bit far afield of Title 17 to include some sections of the code outside Title 17. Just as a reminder, Title 17 is the Harbor Code. The process leading to the recommendations included 5 reports from the subcommittee that was responsible for that objective in those 5 meetings, and then a full public hearing on February 9th, 2022, when the recommendations were approved by the full Harbor Commission. Focus areas included raft-ups, and the purpose for that is the legacy of the necessity to permit raft-ups came from the fire code, and putting it into Title 17 clearly delineates the authority to issue these permits to the Harbor Department. Just some statistics about that. Since 2017, when the Harbor Department was formed in the city of Newport Beach, you see the number of permits issued for raft-ups each year, the average vessels permitted in those raft-ups, the maximum number of vessels permitted in those raft-ups. You will see that 1 application was denied back in 2018 and 2 were revoked last year. The other table there shows the number of requests for service we have had based on raft-ups. Those requests for service fall into 3 categories: noise reported by residents, noise reported by other vessels in the harbor, and lastly, unpermitted raft-ups. An additional area of focus for the Harbor Commission were the mooring sub-permits and allowing for sub-permittees, which are 2 weeks at a time. A sub-permit is a 2-week permit to enjoy a mooring, allowing those who are transiting up and down the coast to live aboard their boats for that 2-week period. That is currently not permitted in the code. There is significant the revisions include significant authority for the code enforcement team to look outside of Title 17 and address items like water quality, wildlife, nuisances, and business licenses, which are all covered in areas of the code outside Title 17. It also brings us into compliance with the state grant for handling abandoned vessels. In terms of marine activities permits, The revised marine activities permit that was implemented in January 2021 provided for a wider variety of marine activities permittees. Many of those do not carry marine sanitation devices on their vessels, and so the requirement to maintain a pump out station at the facility where that permittee operates really didn't make sense, especially for those that don't have marine sanitation systems. The no discharge clause in the harbor still remains. The code currently does not allow for fueling of vessels from another vessel. We are just cleaning that up and making it so an existing very convenient service enjoyed by many mariners in the harbor is permitted. And in the future, others may choose to provide this service as well. Next to lastly, anchoring and mooring, we've defined more clearly that it is a requirement to anchor within the designated anchorages, and we are also codifying the maximum beam on a vessel enjoying a shore mooring at 8 feet. Lastly, clarity of language and just some cleanup of punctuation and language consistency. That's it.
Okay, great. I don't see any requests to speak. Let's go out to the public. I think I know how they feel about some items. And then we'll bring it back. Public comments, please come forward. If many of you intend to speak, please create lines at the opposing podiums. Come up now. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Newport Beach City Council. I'm here today on behalf of my husband, John Botros, of 1810 West Balboa Boulevard, Newport Beach. I'm Michelle Harris. Unfortunately, my husband has out-of-town business and is not able to be here tonight to implore you to vote no on the proposed changes in Title 17. He has asked me to read the following on his behalf. Good evening again. I've read the proposed changes on City Ordinance number 2022-9, amending the municipal code pertaining to raft-ups. I've read the Harbor Commission notes on the subject and the Harbor Master's recommendation. Since there isn't a single shred of metrics-based or quantitative data supporting this recommendation, I'd like to take a moment to share some with you tonight. First, to qualify myself to you, I'd like to share that I've had over 200 permits issued by both the Sheriff and Harbor Departments over the last 24 years. 95% of those permits were for events with 20 to 25 vessels rafted in the anchorage area. I personally wrote the first permit request form for the newly formed Harbor Department in 2017, as they were ill-prepared to take over the new responsibility. Now, here is some quantitative data based on my conversations with the Sheriff Department and a request for information from the Harbor Department. These metrics not only represent my permitted raft-ups, but all raft-ups over the last 10 years. Number of fires at permitted raft-ups, 0. Number of medical evacuations or calls for emergency services at permitted raft-ups, 0. Number of noise complaints for permitted raft-ups, 10. Number of noise complaints from unpermitted raft-ups, 13. Number of revoked permits from the Sheriff Department, 0. Number of revoked permits from the Harbor Department, 2. Actually, during the event itself. Number of citation issued under the Sheriff Department, 0. Number of citations issued under the Harbor Department, 4. Number of people ever cited in the city of Newport Beach raft-ups, 2. Number of citations thrown out by the administrative hearing process, 3. Average turnaround time for a permit under the Sheriff Department, 3 days, sometimes hours or minutes if requested. Proposed turnaround for a permit under the Harbor Department, 30 days. With that brief intro, I'd like to express my vehement opposition to the proposed changes and, frankly, the existence of the Harbor Department entirely. For tonight, I will stick with 3 specific points. 1, I request that the limit of 7 boats proposed in the ordinance be removed. There is no quantitative data supporting this arbitrary number. On the flip side of this coin, I have shared quantitative numbers supporting removing this restriction. For your consideration, I remind the council that these events are highly regulated by the event coordinators and captains are briefed on safety. I'd be happy to share our pre-event captain's instructions, including A, anchoring protocols to ensure our raft-ups don't move, B, vessel locations and arrival times to ensure the safest traversals between vessels based on vessel layout, C, safety equipment requirements for each vessel, D, stereo volume guidelines to ensure we aren't infringing on the enjoyment of our neighboring residents and vessels, etc. And by the way, I personally walk around with a decimal meter at these events. E, dedicated VHF channels for safety. Further, I invite the Harbor Commission, Harbor Master, or the Council to attend our captain's pre-event, which is required Zoom call to understand the lengths we go to for safety and compliance with our permit conditions. With respect to safety, these events have more than enough fire suppression, automatic and manual. They have more than enough first aid capabilities and dedicated emergency vessels to evacuate an ill or injured participant if necessary, which they've never been used. Apart from a few wet towels and a few lost cell phones, there have been zero issues at these events. With respect to noise, a concern indicated by the Harbor Master, I again would like to demonstrate quantitatively that this is a non-issue. Since 2018, per the Harbor Master's records, there have been 10 noise complaints from permitted raft-ups, 13 from unpermitted. I'd like to see the data behind unique complaints to determine if all complaints are coming from the same resident. Regardless, if you want to enforce noise, do so. Do not limit raft-ups without supporting data. I promise you one boat at the anchorage can create just as much noise pollution as 25 rafted together. Two,
Okay, I have to cut you off. You can give it to someone else to finish if you like.
if he had glasses.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mayor, Council, my name is John Marshall. I'm the Staff Commodore at South Shore Yacht Club in Newport Beach. We typically have at least one raft up a year. And I think the number limiting the number of vessels to participate to 7 is arbitrary and capricious. And I don't know any boaters in the harbor that would ever support that type of limitation. We've always tried to have a very welcoming harbor for other skippers coming down from other ports of call. In fact, when Shoreline Yacht Club of Long Beach comes down, they typically have 20 to 25 boats. And these are people that ages probably 55 to 75 years of age, so they're not really a wild crowd to begin with. But the nicest thing that happens as a result of these raft-ups is people get hungry. So they go ashore and they spend a lot of money at our local restaurants. So it does have a significant economic impact if we were to limit their activities. So I'm speaking on behalf of all the yacht clubs in Newport Harbor, and we are totally against these type of limitations. It just doesn't make any sense at all. So I hope you oppose that limitation and keep the raft-ups, because it's a great thing, because it's really a community of recreational boaters that gather together and share good times. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Come on now. Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, honorable council members. My name is Alan Freeman, president of Diamond Productions. Happy to say that 2022 is our 25th year of being in business doing events and publicity here in Orange County, mostly in the beach cities. I wanted to speak about the tie-up tonight and the provisions that are proposed to you. Over the years, in the last 25 years, we've done dozens of these throughout the harbor, and a number of other marine events too, by being able to take out the big boats. I can tell you that in those 25 years, we've had as many as 20 or even more boats that have come together to be part of the tie-up group. We've had zero problems with traffic blocking, noise, accidents, injuries, or any other issues. Never a problem and never an issue with anything that we've done there. So the question becomes, why is it that we're limiting the proposal limits the number of boats to be 7 or fewer? That's an interesting thing, because it also provides that the boats over 14 feet would be included in that count, which means that all the Duffies that might come up and be attached to it would increase the number. It's very difficult to see how any of the tie-ups in the larger groups would be accommodated by that. I will remind you that the yacht brokers and the yacht clubs and any of the people that are out there that are showcasing their wares, a lot of times will use these tie-ups as being something that allows them to be able to provide for their guests and for their potential customers. Secondly, I took a look at some of the things that were in the provision, read it inside and out, and there are some spots in there that just, it's hard for me to understand how this would be. So let me share something with you. There's 23 noise complaints that have been made in the 4 years that were listed out there. And I wondered why that would be such a big issue with people. So I went back into the Newport Beach Police Department website, which is excellent for being able to show calls for service. And just over the last 7 days, there were 1,295 calls for service of all different types. Of those, 155 were for noise. Now that means that in the 1 7-day period, we have 7 times as many calls as took place during the entire 4 years that are part of the study that was provided in the documents that were sent to you. And the third thing is that in taking a look at all of this, lots of references are made to robust public comments and lots of opportunity for people to be able to check this out. Well, I can assure you that knowing the boating community around here as I do, and many of the people who are going to speak in a few moments will tell you, there's very few people that knew about this. And when they found out about it, there was an immediate reaction. That's how you can find that we managed to forestall the events from taking place on the 22nd of March at the last council meeting, and how it's all happened here in the last couple of days to be able to come here tonight. So thank you for listening. I hope you consider it.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is George Posey. I'm a 50-year resident Newport Beach, business owner, boat owner, and licensed Coast Guard captain. The 30-day permit requirement for 3 or more boats is just basically ridiculous. So if 3 boats want to get together 30 days prior, they had to put a permit for a raft-up application. Ridiculous. The 7-boat raft-up limit has no basis in reality and should be extended or dropped altogether. We've been doing these raft-ups for years and years and years. We've never had any injuries, property damage, no liabilities. City hasn't been sued, and it goes to the community spirit of the city. Nextly, the noise level is basically a non-issue. An electric boat passing with a boombox has far more noise than a raft up 50 or 100 yards away from any structure. But still, you'll get a complaint that there's noise on the harbor. The fire code, again, is laughable. Each tie-up vessel has at least 2 fire extinguishers with a halon suppressant system. And with everybody on the boats, no fire would stand more than 30 seconds without the captain or the boat owner responding to that situation and mitigating that problem. So the fact that the proposal says that there is a fire concern issue is again overblown. And finally, the inserting language in Title 17 that fines and citations will not be appealable is one of the most egregious parts of these proposals. Hopefully that was taken out of this. This violates our 14th Amendment of the Constitution. So please keep the harbor open for the people who enjoy the harbor like we do, and let's all enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. How many more people want to speak on this item? Okay. If you can sort of head towards the front.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Michael Trika, and I've been a resident of Newport Beach since I first came here in 1988. Purchased a boat and enjoyed the boating community here for a long time. I did, in that period, live elsewhere in Orange County, raise my children, but have moved back to Newport Beach the last 3 years to live and enjoy the beautiful environment here. I'm the first woman that spoke. I don't know her, but I'm sure her facts were awesome, and those don't need to be repeated. I hope that they become a record of today. Secondly, I'd like to say that I've read 20 different letters from our boating community, and I feel very bad for Mr. Blank. He seems to have gotten the ire of, whether right or wrong, of some of the boating community that this is an issue that, he's responsible for. And I don't believe that to be the case. And I would like to apologize for any type of attacks that he may have felt that kind of our group got focused. And here's the problem. We were not aware of the September 8th Harbor Commission meeting where this was discussed, nor the October 13th Harbor Commission meeting where it was discussed, nor the November 10th, nor the December 6th, nor the January 12th. And the Harbor Commission presented it and said they had a complete, full, this is from your notes, from today's minutes, from today's meeting agenda, I'm sorry. The proposed changes had a full, robust, and complete public hearing at the February 9th, 22 Harbor Commission meeting. I doubt anyone from this group was there. So we pretty much found out about it after that, and then we rallied, and hence we're at today. So I think the problem here is that I'm only speaking to the wrapped up part of it. We feel that was not properly vetted or communicated by the people, the voters that participate in those events in Newport Beach, so that we can come to a reasonable resolution to what's acceptable. I don't believe 7 boats is. Maybe more than 20 is too many. I can say last year we applied for 14, we got 12. And that's an event that we've done for 10 years in a row, almost 2 years in a row, and I've been at every one of them. There's never been a single negative injury or event or problem. We're talking about people, nobody under 30. I'm 62. People are from 75 to, maybe 35. So we're talking about responsible boat owners, own their own boats, 20 boats in the harbor. We've had 20 boats. That picture was probably last year. And the other problem we have is when the people, we have to limit the number of people that come. If we can't get them on the boat, they can't come. More people want to go to these events that we have on Sunday of Memorial Day and Sunday of Labor Day, that every year, twice a year, that we just have to tell them, no, it's a friends, you can't come. It's a popular event. It's actually called Flotilla. So I feel there's a bit targeting on that particular event with that particular name, and that we need to, take a look. So my proposal is this. Can we put some people together that are in the boating community that do participate and want wrapped ups? The first woman, I don't know her, but she was incredible, the facts that she had. Can we then sit down, pick a few people to work with the harbor master, work with the Harbor Commission, come up with something that's acceptable to the citizens of Newport Beach, so that we don't have to litigate this, file an injunction, and can we work it out? That's what I'm requesting. Can we do it like reasonable people and just work it out with the harbor master and with the commission? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next speaker, please.
Coming close to 8 o'clock. Thank you so much for you guys' time. And I sat here from, I think, 5 o'clock and listened to what you guys had to listen to all day. Everybody covered this part of the session, so I don't really have much to add. The only thing is I've lived here 50 years. I'm not as old as George, but I've been here over 50 years. And I did a survey I actually know 90% of the restaurant owners in Newport Beach, a lot of residents of Newport Beach, and every single person was just shocked. They had no clue what's going on. I mean, as far as the noise factor, I come here pretty much every other month regarding the John Wayne Airport's noise factor. As far as the fire goes, these guys are captains. They're very capable of putting a small fire in the bay. But I just want to let you know that as far as I know, I guarantee you I can bring you 10,000 signatures that there will be every single person that lived in Newport Beach and uses these rafts. They're 100% against this, and they would love to keep doing it. I mean, nowadays, you don't know what's going to happen in 30 days. So if you have a 30-day licensing, God knows if the whole harbor is going to get closed down in 30 days. So that 30 days definitely has to be removed. And for the rest of them, I agree with everything else everybody else says. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Next speaker, please.
Mayor Muldoon, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. We heard and we've read in the staff report that what is being presented to you tonight is a recommendation from the Harbor Commission, who you apparently highly respect. I find that statement difficult to accept when I compare what is before you tonight to what was before the Harbor Commission on February 9th, where they supposedly approved this. It's disturbing to me that you're told that this is what the Harbor Commission approved when it demonstrably does not appear to be that. The provision So some things have been added, some things have been taken out from what was before the Harbor Commission. Very tiny point. In one of the provisions, it referred to the harbor master as he, and the Harbor Commission directed the staff to correct that. It's not been corrected. We have also, perhaps the most disturbing, which has bothered some people, is the new declaration that the harbor master and the people who work for him have the authority to declare something to be a nuisance with no possibility. That declaration is final with no possibility of appeal. I thought the Harbor Commission had not noticed that when it was before them. The reason they didn't notice it was not presented to them. That has been interpolated into this since it was seen by the Harbor Commission. I find that disturbing. Some of the other passages in here were not at all in what was presented to the Harbor Commission. And equally importantly, the harbor master has told us we need this ordinance, and there is an ordinance. The presentation called it 2202-9. It is actually an ordinance called 2022-9, starting on page 11-18. And you've been told one of the reasons you need to adopt this ordinance, and this is what you would be adopting if you adopt this tonight, is to support our abandoned vessel program, which, as I understand it, requires an amendment to section 1770-040. That was before the Harbor Commission. They approved that. I've looked carefully through this ordinance. I find no amendment in it to section 1770-040. So whatever you think about this, and whatever you think about staff changing the recommendation that came from the Harbor Commission, I don't think this ordinance is ready for adoption tonight. Thank you.
Hello, council members. My name is Wade Womack. I'm a 25-year resident of Newport Beach. Just wanted to go over a couple of bullet points real quick. First thought is, can we keep the harbor as inviting as possible for all to enjoy? Secondly, the fewer restrictions, the better. Let's try to not restrict things as much. Thirdly, according to the stats, the code enforcement was pretty minimal over the last 4 years. I think the COVID year was kind of the big one because this was the only place to hang out. Maybe a few people were blowing off steam. I do appreciate the Harbor Commission's efforts to make our harbor safer, and I really do support that aspect of it. And then lastly, did the Harbor Commission look at other options? I would highly recommend kind of a outreach work group, more outreach from the Harbor Department and the Harbor Commission. And maybe there's some other ideas, such as no overnight raft ups, or do an informal check-in with the harbor master like they do in Avalon, where you can tie up a couple boats on the moorings and create some flexibility in the whole situation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Morton, you're not one for controversy, man. I don't know what you're doing here.
Talking to me? Mr. Mayor, Council, those of you who don't know me, my name is Morton Irvine Smith. I'm seventh generation Orange County, and I grew up sailing at Newport Harbor Yacht Club, lived at the Balboa Bay Club in the 80s, and was a proud partner of Windows on the Bay during its existence, which you know was the largest restaurant in Orange County and waterfront here in Newport. I've been a frequent guest at Flotilla. I drive up from San Juan Capistrano because it's one of the holidays, one of the events I really look forward to. Actually, it's more than one a year, maybe two or three, weather permitting. And I can say it's been nothing but a pleasure to see the land my family gave to this city from the water. Anytime I sit on a boat and reflect on Fashion Island, or the very land you're sitting on, or the Newport Beach Golf Club that was my grandfather's private golf course before it turned over to the city, nothing gives me more pride. that is accentuated by the guests and the atmosphere at the tie-ups that I have attended. I have seen nothing but people actually just in awe of the beauty of our town, the beauty of our community, the friendliness of the event. Quite frankly, it's shocking to me because I'm very aware of the heavy police presence and Harbor Patrol presence, and it's actually refreshing to see that the event draws no ire from that particular element. And then we have the harbor master. Now, he has a job to do, and is certainly well within his rights to inspect and to inform. I personally had an attitude that the events that transpired when I saw him interact with the hosts of the event at the last tie-up that I attended was very troublesome. It created a problem where there was none. We had been in constant contact with the Harbor Patrol, which was circling the event for hours before that. And quite frankly, I was a little embarrassed for him because the Harbor Patrol was laughing at him. As we would ask, do you have a problem? No, we don't have a problem. Well, the harbor master was being very contentious to the host of the event. What are we, children? These gentlemen that host this event own boats that could pay his salary 4 times over, or most employees of the city. Presumably, to afford those boats, they have businesses with multiple employees and know how to be responsible. They're taxpayers in Newport Beach, and they live here because of the grace living in Newport affords them. This is the jewel of California, the jewel of Orange County, the jewel of California. This should be the place where we're not Miami Beach. We're not Fort Lauderdale. We're not the Gulf of Mexico. We represent the finest in American citizenry. And I implore you to see that before you make any judgment on minute and micro management here and overreach. I want to have you look at your emblem. Those aren't tugboats on that emblem. Those are yachts. That is the history of this community. I know, for one, my family was part of that history. That is the draw that the world sees when they come to Newport Beach. Before if they've never been here, they believe it's going to be yachting, sunshine, beautiful people, and accommodating citizenry. And that's what you get at Flotilla. I want to end in, because I'm very familiar with that beep, having worked as a commissioner in San Juan for 10 years. This is overreach. And you want to be careful in the environment that we're in, because so goes Orange County, so goes the state, so goes the nation. Newport leads the way. Let's be a bastion for personal rights here and an accountability to its citizens. Let them be responsible. And quite frankly, this is Newport Beach, not Huntington Beach. And if the harbor master wants to find Zodiacs and Duffys, I hear Lake Elsinore is hiring. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker, please. Okay, I'm not seeing any more. I'm guessing there are no speakers on this issue from Arizona, unless someone's at Havasu wants to call in. Running back to the dais. I'm not supporting the raft-up petition. I don't think that we should have a permit, or if we do, it should be as restrictive, which is not very as the county. I understand what the Harbor Commission is trying to do. So I would support this without that element, but I see a comments request. Councilman Dixon.
Just a couple questions of the harbor master. Other than the data that you presented, what were the circumstances that caused you to feel, or caused the commission to feel, that we needed to have some regulation on this? Were there other? Could you give some color to the incidents that have occurred over the last several years?
I heard 2 questions in there, council member. The first was what led the commission to make these recommendations, and the second was what were the circumstances around a particular raft up last Labor Day. So what led the Harbor Commission, in my humble opinion, and I don't speak for all 7 of them, but I'm going to do my best right now, what led them to make these recommendations was the observations they had on that particular weekend of those particular events. There were several harbor commissioners who did observe the raft ups and the activities of Labor Day weekend 2021. And so now I'll move. So I'm sorry, I believe that those were the things that led them to make these recommendations. The circumstances from my perspective, and I did I can only speak from my perspective. I'm not trying to represent what the harbor commissioners saw. But what I saw was unsafe conditions, and after having had meaningful conversations and an agreement with the permittees, flagrant disregard for the conditions associated with those conditions by the permittees. And I felt that that was inappropriate and unsafe, and I asked politely on several occasions for them to honor the conditions of their permit. There was no motion made, there was no effort made to try and honor those conditions. I stayed in observance of that situation to ensure that it remained safe. Had there been a medical emergency, had there been a fire, we had personnel, including me there, to assist with that, but it was, in my professional opinion, unsafe.
Could you clarify, Mr. Mosher made the comment that what we have here in the recommendation is different than from which was discussed or approved unanimously by the Harbor Commission. Could you comment on that?
The only part of that I can comment on is a revision by the city attorney's office, which is frequently the case after any commission or board has made recommendations that involve code amendments. The city attorney's office did make some revisions, including including adding the language that identifies these permits, both raft-up permits and mooring sub-permits, as immediately revocable and non-appealable. And it is only the permit revocation that is unappealable. Fines and citations are, of course, always appealable. But the city attorney, in their review of the whole thing, did say that in order to abate nuisance or unsafe conditions, it should be the responsibility of the harbor master to, if they can't get compliance, revoke the permit and have the revocation not be appealable so as to abate the nuisance or unsafe conditions immediately.
Okay, and then a couple more questions. How did you come up with the 30-day permit approval period? Was that because that's the that's the standard for how we approve all small events?
That is correct.
Special
So the
events.
30-day approval permit period was it is legacy. It's just not written into the code. But on every permit application from the Harbor Department going back to its inception, it says permit requests or permit applications will be considered if they are filed at least 30 days in advance of the actual event. And that is consistent with the language used for all special event permit applications run through the Recreation and Senior Services Department.
And then how did the number 7 raft-ups come to be?
Forgive me, my memory is not as good as it should be. The current department practice is a 10-vessel limit and a 4 raft-up limit per weekend, and that was just decided on by the Harbor Department to use as policy currently. In the past, and you saw the table that says the maximum number was 15 for a while, and then it was 12. And in researching the history, I sort of settled on 12 for last year, and then the department, based on its experience, and this is really me representing my people who have to deal with this, their recommendation was 10. At some point, the subcommittee of the Harbor Commission also surveyed my team, including code enforcement officers and harbor services workers, and the subcommittee's recommendation came down to 7.
And then one final question. I did not know until I heard the comments this evening that many of these tie-ups, raft-ups are organized, they're commercial entities, commercial enterprises that organize these?
There are occasions when, for instance, a yacht broker will organize a raft-up for their current and potential customers. There is also at least one commercial organization that on an annual basis organizes at least one, if not 2, raft-ups per
For the
year.
most part, they're just friends.
Well, in the case of the yacht broker, he's trying to sell boats.
Right, other than those 2 commercial examples, but all the others are really just social raft-ups?
That's my understanding, yes.
I see. Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman O'Neill.
I tend to agree with Mayor on this one. Aaron, if we were to try to move forward on everything but raft-ups and then send the raft-ups discussion back to Harbor Commission to have the discussion with these folks that probably should have happened the first time, and I'm not blaming Harbor Commission, just to be clear, but but now we know that, I mean, this sort of what we do a lot, actually, when we have an issue, because honestly, I have no idea if 7's the right number, or some of this other, and I'd really like to get some more discussion going with these folks in the Harbor Commission. So if we wanted to try to do that, is it possible to make the motion, or do we need to bring it back? Would your department need to kind of work through?
So the rafted portion of it is pretty entwined in the ordinance that's before you tonight. And so I'd feel more comfortable if if that's direction to make a motion to refer the raft ups back to the Harbor Commission, but bring the remainder of the ordinance, we'll take out the raft up portion, bring it back for first reading at the next meeting.
Okay. All right, before I make that motion, just a couple of quick comments. Thanks for coming. I'm glad we were able to continue it so that we could have the discussion and get some of the numbers, and it helped me at least understand what I don't understand. So thank you. I appreciate that. One other quick note, Paul's not a bad person. So for folks who've kind of said some pretty aggressive comments in some of the written materials, just I would ask a little bit more respect on that one. Paul Blank has been part of this community for a really long time. And I know he's harbor master, which kind of puts him at odds with, and that's a job he chose, and he gets paid by your tax money. There's no question about that. But I would just say, I know I saw a couple of comments in there saying that he clearly doesn't know our city, he doesn't know the harbor, he doesn't, et cetera. Paul's known this harbor a hell of a lot longer than a lot of us. And he really does understand this community. So I would just suggest it's a lot better to just kind of work with him and talk with him one-on-one than some of the attacks that I saw on him. So I would just, like I said, on this one, just bring back the respect that I think Paul would certainly be deserving of. And I appreciate your comments on that. So we'll give you the opportunity for sure to kind of work this one through. So we appreciate your being here. We'll make sure you all know when the Harbor Commission is going to be able to discuss this one, and you can bring your ideas forward then. I don't know what it looks like. That's one of the reasons we have commissions and committees and boards, and so anyway, just appreciate that. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to make a motion that we bring back this item without the raft-up modifications, but that we send the raft-up modifications back to Harbor Commission for further discussion.
Great, I'll second. Thanks. Councilwoman Nixon, no. That's not the time.
The motion's been made and seconded, and I support that. I guess I do want the community to know that the council values Mr. Blank. You've been very effective harbor master, and appreciate making difficult calls and difficult decisions. And maybe this item needs a little bit more work, but I encourage the Harbor Commission to come back, separate it as the motion says, and then come back. Because we want to be a welcoming boating community. We absolutely do. We want to be respectful of the residents who live nearby, and that's important. And we just want to consider how all these factors come together so we can protect the boating community and protect our residents and peacefully coexist. But so thank you for your good work and the Harbor Commission's good work, and I look forward to continued discussion. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Avery.
And there's no secret the harbor has gotten much more active in the past few years, and for all the reasons we know. And the harbor is a neighborhood also. So there's about 1,000 homes around the bay, and the raft ups are close to the homes on the east end of Lido Island. They're close to the homes on the 4 or 5 islands you can see from that fantastic location. And so I think what we just really need to work on is, because it's more crowded, there's more activity, the anchorage gets pretty full in the summers. It's great to see, and residents are enjoying the peaceful enjoyment of their homes. But at a certain point, if people really don't work extra hard to not, hit other people's enjoyment of the harbor, that's where we have the issue. And that's not just raft ups, that's charter boats, that's people, however they're recreating and having a great time, but they're not thinking of others sometimes. They're playing their music too loud. They've been drinking too much. So that's what we're trying to balance out here. And I know the harbor master is committed to everybody's enjoyment of the harbor and trying to find or thread that needle, if you will, on a Labor Day weekend, on a 4th of July weekend. It's difficult because people are really, in some cases, revved up and having a great time. And so the only thing I can ask is that everybody respect each other, and certainly when the harbor patrol comes alongside or the harbor master asks, if the harbor patrol's being disrespectful, that's not good either. But I don't think that's really what's happening. So it's just the amount on these sort of these peak weekends, we need to manage it a little more than we have, say, in 2000. This is really a different experience now. But it's great because when we see the harbor full, we're all happy. It's great. Everyone's having a great time. So we just have to maybe look to each other and say, maybe that, talk to somebody and say, maybe turn your music down, or be careful. If you're in command of a vessel, as we all know, and your passengers are drinking and you're drinking, that's a setup for some trouble. So those are the things that we really need to communicate, because we want everyone to enjoy the harbor and keep each other safe. So I'm totally in support of going back to the Harbor Commission and have the dialogue as Mr. O'Neill suggested, and we'll work something out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Brenner.
Yes, I would just like to second the comments of my colleagues on the council and say how much we do appreciate the Harbor Commission and the Harbor Master, and they have the responsibility of making sure that everyone's rights in the community are protected and the safety of everyone is taken into account. So they're trying to do a very difficult job under extreme circumstances. And I'm definitely in support of us sending this back to the Harbor Commission, getting it clarified, making sure everyone is heard, and that we make this as acceptable as possible to as many as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I call the vote, do you have a question, Mr. Posey?
I just want to know what would be the status of wrapped up permits as we are right now?
It'd be the default county. The default county regulations would apply.
So are we looking at 7, or are we looking at 10, or 20?
So nothing will be modified regarding wrapped ups. It'll go back to the Harbor Commission for further discussion. So it'll be the current process that's in effect today.
Okay.
Applied for 14 last year in September. We got 12 approved. 14 showed up, and then a bunch of duffies, and that became the problem. That was the problem. More people wanted to come, and we had a new lower number that we didn't. That dropped on us last year, and the one-off event. I feel bad for everyone involved, and particularly for the harbor master here on this. And I think we're out of something that's reasonable.
Okay.
Too many people showed up.
Okay.
So,
too popular.
Okay. It's a good problem to have. Okay. Let's vote.
Okay, Councilmember O'Neill.
Aye.
Councilmember Dixon. Aye. Councilmember Brenner.
Aye.
Councilmember Avery.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Blom.
Yes.
Mayor Muldoon.
Aye.
The motion carries 6-0 with Councilmember Duffield recusing himself.
Thank you. Okay, next item. Fernleaf Avenue Trial One-Way Street Designation.
Great. Good evening again, Mayor, council members.
Yes,
okay.
Go ahead.
I'd like to introduce Tony Bryan again. We have a quick little presentation in regard to a one-way request on Fernleaf.
Great. Go ahead, Tony.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, council members. 2 traffic items in one day. So this is the Fernleaf Avenue
It's a thriller.
Look at him.
I'm sure. I'm glad that brought a smile.
Some refuge in some trees and we'll
So this is Fernleaf Avenue one-way trial. This is a request that we received from some residents on Fernleaf Avenue in Corona Del Mar. They had specific concerns related to traffic confrontations, traffic backups, the volume of traffic, damage to parked vehicles, delayed emergency response. And they submitted a petition, 18 residential addresses in the 200 block that we're looking at. 14 signed the petition.
Those 18 are the back units as well?
I'm sorry?
Those 18 include the back units as well?
Yes,
Wow,
yes, all
okay.
of the addressed properties. So this is the section of Fernleaf that we're looking at. It's just the one block from Seaview to Ocean. And so they're proposing southbound from Seaview to Ocean. Just describing Fernleaf real quickly, that 200 block, it's 30 feet wide curb to curb, which is typical for Corona Del Mar streets. Parking on both sides, again, typical for Corona Del Mar. The thing that makes this street specifically unique is that it serves as the direct route from Bayside Drive up the Fernleaf ramp and then straight across Fernleaf to Ocean Boulevard. And so it's unique in that perspective that other streets don't have that direct route to Ocean Boulevard. There are higher traffic volumes than other parallel streets in that area of Corona Del Mar for that particular reason. And it is located in a little bit of a geographically, different corner of Corona Del Mar, if you will, as opposed to looking at the rest of the other areas of Corona Del Mar. So just some photographs. We'll start down at the ramp and work our way towards the 200 block. The picture on the right is the Fernleaf ramp. If you look all the way towards the bottom, that would be Bayside Drive. So you get a fair amount of traffic coming from Bayside Drive up the ramp, and then they go across that 300 block, which is the first block at the top of the ramp. There's no parking on that first 300 block. Which makes it a little bit different. So they come straight through, and then they go to the 200 block of Fernleaf Avenue. And so this is the block we're talking about turning into, or looking at a trial for a one-way direction designation on this block. This is the intersection at Fernleaf and Ocean. It's a wide intersection. One thing that's unique, a little bit unique here is, and you can't see it necessarily in the photograph, but there's a directional sign, a green directional sign at the corner that directs cars to Coast Highway via Fernleaf Avenue. So I'm sure that sign's been there for many, many years. And so it's basically telling people in that particular area, maybe they've gone to Corona Del Mar Beach or other areas along Ocean. This is the route back to Coast Highway. And so that's one of the concerns that the Fernleaf residents have, is they're feeling they're getting a much higher volume of traffic on their street. So what we're looking at doing here, again, when I met with the residents, they wanted to implement this. Basically, they wanted to go ahead and just take it forward to council and implement it. I felt, again, maybe this was appropriate to do as a trial. We haven't done one-way streets in Corona Del Mar. There has been discussion recently of one-way streets throughout Corona Del Mar uniformly. That hasn't gotten a lot of traction. There has been that discussion, but not uniform support. So we thought, well, if we're going to try it in Corona Del Mar on any street, for whatever reason, maybe let's just do a trial and see how it goes. So we're going to do the same before and after traffic analysis. This one will make a 6-month trial, so it'll run through the summer. That's probably one of the biggest periods that they show the concern for, obviously, is the higher summer traffic. We'll make observations. We talked a little bit before in the Tustin discussion about possible one-way, wrong-way driving on a one-way street. And then we'll come back to the council at the end of the 6-month trial period and again, report our observations.
Councilman Dix, you have a question? Oh, she has her hand raised, yes. Councilman Brenner.
Yes, I just wanted to mention one thing. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to mention a couple of things. These residents have been meeting with me and with Tony and with anyone and with CDM Residents Association for quite some time because of the specific circumstances on their street. Many of them have been sideswiped and have had their mirrors knocked off their cars. And they've also commented about the altercations where people have gotten one car going up the street and one car coming down and people refusing to move and almost reaching the fisticuffs stage when they're fighting about who's going to move their car backwards. So in this case, it just seemed like it was definitely worth a trial. I did want to also mention that there is majority support in Old Corona Del Mar for one-way streets, but it has not been unanimous support. And I referred them to our petition process for if they wanted to get one-way streets throughout Corona Del Mar, they needed to do the petitions. This group actually did the petition a lot. It seemed like an overwhelming task for a lot of them. And so they've been asking me if we could request a study similar to the Mariners Dover Shores study that was done probably, a year and a half ago, and look at all of the streets, because we are having more and more altercations where people are disgruntled and having to back up into traffic and that sort of thing. So I would definitely support us doing this on a trial basis for now, and then hoping that we could do a study of all of the village and look at what we could do to make things better there, because it is getting more problematic. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councilwoman Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor. Tony, just a couple questions. So it's just that one block of Fernleaf. So if someone's already at Ocean and they want to get to Coast Highway, they need to go up either Dahlia or Goldenrod, then work their way back to Fernleaf, and then go down the hill, go down the incline.
Correct. That's what they would do, and that's why we've already done some counts on those different streets on Goldenrod, Dahlia, Seaview, Ocean. So we have some data. We would then find out how again, this is another one of those distribution traffic being diverted to other streets. What would be those changes with making it a one-way?
Right, because I think that's obvious. There will be some ripple effect. You know, when I whispered to the mayor when you were talking about that street sign, why don't you just remove the street sign for now? To Coast Highway.
Right.
You know, once people are down there, they don't know how. It can be confusing down there and how you get out of there and get to Coast Highway. But if that's contributing to the problem, I would say just get rid of the sign. But I would be supportive of this and do a trial. And what we're finding that our beautiful streets and the grids that were established many decades ago, we just have more people coming into our community, and the impact, and they're full-time, year-round impacts that create these, require us to look at these traffic patterns. So I would be supportive of what the residents want as a 6-month study. So thank you.
Any part left of your presentation?
Yes, that's it, unless you have any further questions.
Excellent. I don't see any right now, so let's go out to the public. If you plan to speak on this item, please come forward now towards the front.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Ben Roth, and I do live on Fernleaf. And I wanted to say, first, I think Mr. Bryan and also Council Member Brenner did a great job in regards to explaining the situation. I do think there are a couple other things that we can add to that as well. Fernleaf is unique also from another perspective, and that is that, you know, with all the traffic that is, you know, it's one of the main arteries coming into Ocean. And so the only way you can get in really into Ocean is through Fernleaf, Marguerite, and Poppy are the three main streets to access it. And the difference between our street and those other two streets, I mean, first, Marguerite's a much larger street, but our street is R2 zoning. So it means you have more cars parked in the street than what you do on, on Poppy, for example, and then, or other streets. And then on top of that, as well, you also don't have ability to park on the 300 block of Fernleaf. There's no parking on either side. So those cars also tend to park on our 200 block of Fernleaf as well. That situation means that cars can't pull over. As they're going down the street, there's no place for them to go. So you end up in having standoffs in the street. And that's what Councilmember Brenner was addressing, the fact that there are altercations that come about, people honking their horns. We've had people turn off their engines and just park right there in the middle of the street. We had to go and call the police. I tried to negotiate or arbitrate for somebody to back up. They just wouldn't move. And then we have our cars damaged. I've had mine 3 times, and most of everybody on the street has had their cars damaged. So it's something that, and that's normally when 2 cars are trying to maneuver and get through at the same time because there's no place to pull over. There are 3 basic problems that come about then. It's the fact that, one, the altercations and, just problem with 2 cars coming. Also the fact of our damage to our cars. And the third is the fact that people are conditioned to not be able to get through the street. So when they come down Ocean, like the pictures that Mr. Bryan showed, then they zoom down the street. They accelerate because they don't want to have a conflict. They don't want to have to negotiate with another car. So if they see there's a clear path, then they just speed along on Fernleaf, which is dangerous for everybody. And nobody wants to get, that's something that, we don't, with all the people walking down our street all the time trying to get to the beach, it's just dangerous. And so fortunately, I don't know if anybody that's gotten hit, but I do know that it is a problem and we're darting out of the way all the time. So that's why we're appealing to you for this. It's just something that it's been going on for years and a source of irritation. We just hope you guys can rectify it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. Next speaker.
Yeah, just simple. I've been in my house for 40 years. I've lived in Corona Del Mar, in that same general neighborhood. And as you know, there's a lot of construction going on. So we have big construction trucks, and I get up really early in the morning at sometimes 5 o'clock. And yesterday, for example, there was a big construction truck that literally takes up the whole street. So there's no way somebody can go around. And having lived in Corona Del Mar most of my life, it's not generally the residents because people know to try and pull over or stop or whatever, but you will get people, especially non-residents, that come down there, and that's where the altercations happen. So that's why we're trying to do this. And just so you know, at sometimes 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, I have seen people just skip that stop sign and go down our street doing 50 miles an hour with cars on both sides of the street. So there are some problems, just things to think about. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Janice Karsten, and I live on Fernleaf as well. Everyone's covered this very well. Tony and Joy and Ben and Cheryl. But the only thing I wanted to add is that there also is a problem with emergency vehicles, because the emergency vehicles, police or fire, come up the ramp and go speeding down Fernleaf, and they're trying to get to the emergency and get to Ocean, but meanwhile, they've got cars coming from Ocean, turning up our street. There is no stop sign, by the way, at the corner of Ocean and Fernleaf. So cars just come rolling around the hill, come up the hill, and I saw a very, very close call of a fire engine coming down and a vehicle coming up the street. So these kinds of altercations between the people that don't understand the problems with a small amount of space on the streets, mostly people from out of the area, the property damage, and the emergency vehicles all are kind of an accident waiting to happen. And we would really like to have this approved for our street, and I think it would be a great pilot for our street, which is a little bit unique, and as well as some of the other flower streets. So if you would consider that, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Okay, seeing no other requests to speak on this item, are there any requests for Route 66 drivers in Arizona? I have to ask if anyone in Arizona wants to speak. It's okay.
Is there not a stop sign at the end of?
Leaving Fernleaf down.
Not what?
Sorry, not on Ocean.
Oh, but just at Fernley.
Right.
Ms. Brennan makes want to make a motion?
Well, we have a couple. I have a question. We'll have a question. So, what do we foresee happening? Someone is headed north or westbound-ish on Ocean Boulevard. Are we hoping they're going to veer up Goldenrod instead?
Well, that's probably more than likely where they would route to, is Goldenrod and then to Seaview and down the ramp, if that's the direction they're going. You may get some that use Dahlia instead. But we won't really know until we do that before and after. But yeah, more than likely, Goldenrod would probably be the more used option from that direction on Fernleaf.
In your opinion, Tony, is it more suitable for traffic heading that direction than Fernleaf? Because there's going to be two-way traffic on Goldenrod now.
Well, there's two-way traffic on Fernleaf, two-way on Goldenrod. It's just the question of how much traffic will divert to Goldenrod. Is that an acceptable level of traffic that would be on Goldenrod once we've done that study?
In your opinion now, what do you suspect it's going to be?
Right now, let me see. I've got some numbers. The numbers on Fernleaf right now are about 1,400 cars a day. And on Goldenrod, it's 330 cars a day. So you're going to get some of that one direction. Another 300 cars shifting over to Goldenrod. So you might double the traffic on Goldenrod from what's there today, from like 300-ish to about 600, something in that ballpark.
And do you foresee the same complaints, or do you think it's better suited?
Well, again, we'll see what happens as far as, any concerns or comments from the Goldenrod residents. They do have access. Their garage access, again, is on the alley. So they don't have that, vehicle access directly onto Goldenrod like the streets in Corondon are. So it's just a matter of how much do they sense that there's that big change for them, and for them particularly in traffic volumes on Goldenrod.
The final question, are you going to change the signage that Councilman Dixon asked about?
That directional sign, yeah, probably more than likely we'll go ahead and take that down. That sign's probably been there for decades and decades. So yeah, I think it's appropriate.
Right. Councilwoman Dixon.
Just a quick question, just to follow up on the Goldenrod. Anybody from Goldenrod here tonight? Have they been included in these discussions?
They haven't, for the same reason when we did Tustin as well, and we didn't really reach out to the other, was because this is a trial. So let's do it, set it up, do the trial, contact the people while it's going on, get them involved while it's set up, versus bringing them in at the very start. Let's set the trial up, let's let it play out.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councilwoman Brenner.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out a pretty big difference between this situation and the Tustin situation, because every street that goes from Ocean to Seaview is a possible alternate route. So those are streets all the way from Marguerite all the way down to Dahlia or the next one. And so the traffic that is directed off of Fernleaf has probably 6 or 8 options of streets that they can take up to Seaview in order to go either down to Marguerite or down to Fernleaf, to the Fernleaf ramp. So it could be concentrated, but it also could be dispersed a lot more evenly than, than it is certainly in the Tustin circumstance.
Excellent point. Do you have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion for, to do the trial on the one-way street on Fernleaf.
Sir, and the second from Councilwoman Dixon. Let's vote.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Yes.
Councilmember Duffield is absent. Councilmember Dixon? Yes. Councilmember Brenner?
Yes.
Councilmember Avery?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Blom?
Yes.
And Mayor Muldoon.
Aye. The motion passes 6-0.
Well, the motion carries 6-0, but I am trying to get this Zoom to come up. Motion for reconsideration, a motion to reconsider the vote on any action taken by the City Council, either this meeting or the previous meeting, may be made by only by one of the council members who voted with the prevailing side.
Any motions to reconsider? Okay, seeing none, tonight we are adjourning in memory of Ken Stewart. Tonight we adjourn in memory of Ken Stewart, Newport Beach resident, member of the Southern California Tennis Hall of Fame, and a legend in the tennis community. He passed away from cancer earlier this month. Ken is best known locally as the owner and operator of Palisades Tennis Club. He spent more than 60 years playing, teaching, coaching, and promoting the sport of tennis. After a successful career as a collegiate and professional tennis player, Ken designed, managed, and owned several successful tennis clubs. He hosted countless events for players and charities throughout Southern California, with participants from throughout the world. He has said that his single proudest career achievement was bringing the 1997 Davis Cup tennis tournament to Newport Beach, which attracted 6,000 spectators each day and was broadcast to more than 100 million viewers over 3 days on ESPN. This achievement won him the Newport Beach Person of the Year award. Information on the services are pending. We are adjourned.